Yes, about my trip to Russia. Let me explain to you that this here happened close to 45 years ago, and I will explain to you how it all began. I have a very close friend, a person who is also a model role, and we were always very close in Montreal in the yeshiva. His name is Rabbi Nissen Mangel. I happen to know Rabbi Nissen Mangel, and I had great respect for him, and I also knew that Rabbi Nissen Mangel is a man, as a bacher I saw, of great learning. He had a chavrusa, and his chavrusa was no one but Reb Yankov Shvei, who today happens to be one of the rabbis of the Shchuna of Crown Heights. They would sit and learn, and I was the Gabbai Sfarim, and I had a sickness to stick my nose into what everybody in the yeshiva was learning. I always wanted to monitor and to take the pulse of everybody and what type of a sefer they needed and who was I talking to and so on. I sat at the same table in Montreal with Reb Nissen Mangel, and I overheard quite a bit of the style of learning between him and Rabbi Yankov Shvei. Unbelievable. Two great minds sitting and learning together, and very, very nice people. And the word gaiva was completely not there. Well-learned people, beautiful hasbara. And what were they learning? Mesechtes Menachos, Zvachim, Seder Kochim, and they would had a chavrusa together while we were learning the Masechta of the yeshiva. They did the Masechta of the yeshiva, and before you knew it, they were learning something else. And they would ask me for Sfarim on this topic, on that topic, and I would always try to hear what everybody was learning. Among the boys learning in the yeshiva, we had great Talmidei Chachamim. We had a boy who would jump like a rabbit when he understood a Pri Megadim. I was too young to understand what a Pri Megadim was. I looked into the Pri Megadim and tried to understand it, and there were so many Rosh Tevasim, and there were so many words then that I tried to figure out. I couldn't understand it. And one day, this young boy called Yecheskel Friedman was jumping around. How we got it, and he was so filled of excitement that he was disturbing everybody around him. And another older bacher, I think it was Pinya Korf, sat right next to him, and he asked him, "What are you talking about?" He said, I got it. What did you get? I got the Pri Megadim. Big deal. You got the Pri Megadim. Why are you disturbing everyone? He says, I'll tell you, nobody could get this Pri Megadim. It takes 7 days to figure out the first line. He said, what are you talking about? What Pri Megadim? Let's see. I was sitting behind them. I was monitoring everything that goes on. I was taking their pulse. And I see that this fellow Chatzko Friedman, he really didn't get the whole Pri Megadim, but he did get a good deal of it. But he opened my eyes, and I decided that when I learn Yerdea, I must know a few Pri Megadim. You wouldn't believe it. Not too long ago in the news, we hear about 3 great Talmidei Chachamim, 3 nice people, a shliach, and in Bombay, and there is another man called Rabbi Leibish, Teitelbaum, and then we find Rabbi Kroman above the chussid, all on kashrus. They're sitting there and they're killed on Kiddush Hashem. Everybody in the world knows what the Holzberg Shliach did. Because the truth of the fact is, all the shluchim of the Rabbi, every single one of them, whether we talk about Hong Kong, whether we talk about any place in China, Rabbi Greenberg, or the other Rabbi Greenberg in Alaska, it makes no difference. They're all given completely over to all the orchim that come. I saw it with my own eyes, and I will talk to you now a minute about this great man called Rabbi Leibish Teitelbaum. Reb Leibish Teitelbaum I would meet in China many, many times. And he would always beg me to sit down and to learn with him. What did he want to learn? He wanted to learn the Pri-Megadim on your day. Why do you have to learn the Pri-Megadim? Isn't there nothing else you could learn? He says, no, I have a Rabbi in Eretz Yisrael, in Meish Yoram, and I attend this yeshiva, and his name is called, if I recall, Meir Brandstorfer, and he wants not only Shachem Tazim Mefarshim, he demands me also Pri-Megadim. And Baruch Hashem, whatever I learned by Chatzko Friedman, I monitored him and Rabbi Yeshua and Pinchas Korf. Their arguments back and forth, I recalled, and it was simple for me to understand the Loshem, the very short expressions of the Pri-Megadim. And so therefore, being one that monitored all the Bachrim, what they learned, what Sfarim they took, Reb David Vichnin would try to break through the Maram Shif in Gemara Ksuvas. And then there was a Bacher called Dierenfeld, and he tried very hard, and I monitored him learning those days the Minchas Chinuch with all the abbreviations. So really all three Sfarim were very difficult Sfarim because there was nothing on the line except a great amount of Rosh Tevesim, and you had to sit and figure out those puzzles. And these three Bachrim, indirectly, they got me to try to break the code of these Rosh Tevesim and to get used to learning these three Svarim. Today, no one has to break any codes, no one has to do anything, because the Minchas Chinuch, all the Rosh Tevesim are written out, all the Rosh Tevesim are written out in Ram Shif and Ksuves from a younger man who lives in Square called Rabbi Gordon, and all the Pri-Megadims are written up today, and there's Pri-Megadim HaMavuar, and there really is no hard work today. It was all paved, everything was worked through. But those days, it was the most difficult thing to try to figure out a Pri-Megadim. So let's go back to Rabbi Mingo. He was my guide, and he told me, Binyomin, it's time for you to leave Montreal. You're here for 7 years, you got your smicha, you learned for your yodin, and now it's time for you to pick yourself up and look for a shidduch in New York. You'll stay by me, I'll take care of you, like an older brother, and exactly as he said, he did. It so happens that one day Rabbi Hollander came into the Beis Medrash. It was right after Shavuos, and he appealed to the Bachrim. I am looking for Bachrim who want to go on Merkish Shlichus far away to Sweden. Rabbi Azriel Chaikin is in trouble. He works for a Yekishiki Hilla, and they don't understand how a rabbi takes his vacation, and instead of going to America or Canada to his parents, he spends his time in the Scandinavian countries, and he's Mekadesh Shem Shamayim Berabim, and that he knocks at doors and puts mezuzahs on the people who live there. He puts on tefillin with the people there. He makes minyanim for them, and he does tremendous amount of Yiddishkeit. They don't understand how a man like Avram Ozdeber sits there and does Yiddishkeit, and they don't want this because they are paying their salaries. So now there has to be a change of events, and so therefore I spoke it over with the Rebbe, and also I want you to know I'm looking for a Bacher or two Bachrim who will spend their summer vacation in Merkis to go up to Scandinavian countries, visit them, and to follow the orders of Rabbi Azriel Chaikin, and to be a shliach for the summer months over there. You're going to have to be by yourself. You're not going to be able to have a supper every night. You're not going to be able to have everything you want. But one thing you will have is that you'll be able to fill the Rebbe's shlichus, because Rabbi Chaikin's hands are chained. He cannot do this any longer. He was caught. Anyway, and he's dealing with small minds that have a box and frame around them, and they don't understand that God is all over, and God's children are all over, especially these countries that a lot of Jews who were killed by the Germans went up there to become healed, and they intermarried, and they're all lost there. But Rabbi Chaikin knows all about them and is working on them for many years. Anyway, he appealed, and 3 hands shot up. One was my hand, another one was a very great man, a great Talmud Chacham called Rabbi Elimelech Zwibo, and the third one was a very quiet man called Shimon Lazarov, as he's known, Shimon the Schweiger. Well, we all 3 raised our hands, and I had a friend whose name was Ben-Zion David Shafran from Chicago, and he whispered in my ear many times, remember, from the 3 candidates that are going to go to, we think, to Scandinavian countries to help, Rabbi Chaikin, you're most likely going to be the man. I says, how do you know? He says, simple. Your Yom Haledes is Yud Gimel Tammuz. Right now we are in the month of Sivan. What comes after Sivan? Tammuz. Tammuz comes after your birthday is then. You're going to go into Yechidus, and 99% you're going to be the one that they're going to choose. And so happens that the other 2 Bachrim understood also that I have something over them. And Rabbi Melech Zwibo came over to me, and we were very good friends, and we used to listen to the shir of the Rosh Yeshiva of Rabbi Pekarsky, and I sat next to him, and we reviewed it together, and we spoke a lot together, even though that I came from a different yeshiva, Montreal. Nevertheless, he was kind to me. We sat at the same bench, and he was a bit younger than him, perhaps, and he whispered to me, I would like to go with you. I think that we are compatible. I think that we could work it out together. And besides the point, I will tell you a little secret. I have a sister who's married to a shochet who is working up there, and I would like to visit my sister. So if you could do something for me, please have me in mind when you go into the Rebbe. And I said, I definitely will. Anyway, time came for Yechidus. I had 2 minutes left. All of a sudden, hustle bustle, comes my friend Ben-Zion Shafram. He opens up a map, and he says, Binyomin, look, right over here is Leningrad. Right over here is Helsinki. With a train, 5 hours or less, you could go to Russia. The Rebbe's sitting and crying about Russia. No one gives a darn. No one's doing anything. And nothing's happening for the Russian Jews. The Rebbe cries openly that no one cares about them. And you could be the man. You're an American citizen, he said to me. No bad could ever happen to you. And you have a memory. You could remember a name of a person. You know how to make yourself quiet. You know how to make yourself loud. You are the one that the Rebbe is looking for. When you go into Yechidus, you talk to the Rebbe and mention to him that you would like to go on a shlichus to Russia, not only to Scandinavia. Remember what I told you, he said. I heard what he said. It made sense. I did see the Rebbe cry. I remember Shvuas the Farbrengen, how the Rebbe sat there and he cried and he said, we are all gathered here together, and not one person ever lifted up a cup to say L'chaim. And the Rebbe cried and cried and cried. Then I remember after the Farbrengen, there was Koishel Bracha. I was right behind a man called Rabbi Yitzchak Churgen, who was a Chassidish young Bocher who never got married, but was a tutor and a shochet. He taught Jewish children in Australia. He taught all the Feiglin children in Australia, and he traveled the world. He happened to be an older Bocher, a man who was a shochet, and he said to the Rebbe, and I was in the earshot of it, Rebbe, ich hab gesagt l'chaim for russische Yidden. I did say l'chaim for all the Russian Jews. The Rebbe looked him right in the eye, and he said these words, Rabbi Yitzchak, ich glaub euch, ich hab das nicht gemeint, eure L'chaim. Ich suche a L'chaim, was soll Bokea sein, der Himmel und die Erde. Viato tishma mina shamayim. Ich hab gesucht als ein Mensch. Ich will nicht kein Koyul de Mama Daka. A kleine L'chaim mit a kleine Stimme hab ich nicht gesucht. Anyway, I heard everything what the Rebbe said, and it bothered me very much. Everything that was going on, how the Rebbe cried, and I actually went into Yechidus with the thought of chutzpah, that I was going to talk to the Rebbe about something that was completely out of line, my trip to Russia, my trip to Russia. So what did I do? The Rebbe spoke to me, he told me about the job, He told me my job was, no matter what I thought, no matter what idea came to my mind, foremost, I should always listen to Israel Chaiken, A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z. I should think only about my shlichus in Copenhagen, and from Copenhagen to all the cities that Rabbi Chaiken will send me. I should not put my own mind into the shlichus. Keep your mind quiet. Do exactly what Rabbi Chaiken will tell you to do. Then the Rebbe started talking to me about the expenses, where the money's going to come from, and who is paying for all of this. Then the Rebbe seemed to understand that through Ruach HaKodesh, that I was going to ask for 2 people to go, with a person to accompany me, Rabbi Tzvibo, and the Rebbe said very clearly to me when I offered Rabbi Tzvibo to be my chavrusa to go, he says, Binyomin, there is not even enough money for you to go. I am not so sure that you are going. It's 90%. It's not even 99.9. It's not holding there yet. And if the people in Scandinavia do not pay for a shlichus of Chabad, they, in my opinion, says the Rebbe, they are not worth such a shlichus. I was taken back. I never heard such words from the Rebbe, but I heard them. And I was willing to tell the Rebbe that right now, I worked for Rabbi Kramer, and he paid me with a check. Right now, I got the check, and if a little bit money is missing, I could put up the difference my own. And the Rebbe said, you could hold your own money. This has to come from the community up there. They have to pay for the shlichos. They have to pay for everything. 2 people will not go. Barely 1 Binyomin will go. Nothing more. I immediately understood, and the Rebbe started to give me a bracha, and I looked at the Rebbe, I lifted up my hand like 1 second, and I pulled out that map that my chaver, Rabbi Ben-Zion Shafran, showed me, and I showed the Rebbe Helsinki, Leningrad, exactly as he told me. The Rebbe looked at me and he asked me a very simple question. What are you going to do in Russia? And I answered the Rebbe, and I told him, whatever the Rebbe wants me to do, I'll do. The Rebbe looked at me and he said, I don't want you to talk to me now about Russia. I want you to talk to me about Scandinavia. But I like your idea. In fact, I want you to meet up with Rabbi Haruka for a few moments after the Yechidus, and I want you to think and to speak and to do everything in Scandinavia. Don't you ever think about anything later on what's going to be. And I left the Yechidus. As soon as I came out, I met Rabbi Elimelech, and he said to me a very simple thing. Am I going? I said, nope. Why not? I says, there's not enough money even for me, and 2 people are out of the question. I did ask about you. Then came Shimon the Schweiger, and he took me and explained to me, you are the wrong person. You're fooling the Rebbe, you're fooling everybody. You are a man who likes to learn. You could ask a man, was herzig, lernen. You go to these countries, you have to ask a man a different question. You have to be able to say to him, wie hast du Nacht bei Nacht geschlafen? Mittagkischen oder Kischen? And you don't know how to say that. And I looked at him and I said, if I have to say it, I'll say it. But I would never ask a person, wie hat geschlafen, wie hat gegessen. Well, that's the shlichus. In case you don't know it, you better learn it right now, and better don't go. If you don't know how to ask people very common questions, you must learn how to talk to people who never opened up a sefer. And if you can't do that, you don't belong in shlichus. And behind him, there was a great man. His name was Reb David Raskin. And he happened to talk to me the exact same language as Shimon Lazarov did, Shimon the Schweiger. And he said to me, you don't belong in the shlichus over here. It's not for you. and you should tell the Rebbe straight, and you should let us know, because there's other people who could do a lot better job than you could. You just don't know how to talk to a man how we ate supper last night. I heard what they said. It hurt me very much, but no way was I going to let them get the better of me. And little did I understand that what was going on, and Rabbi Mangel opened my eyes and explained to me how it's important to meet up with a balabas who never opened up a sefer and to talk to him about very common things, and the shlichus is for me and no way should I give it up, not in a million years. And I listened to him, and he guided me through. And it didn't take too long. Before I knew it, I was on a plane to Copenhagen, and I was greeted by Rabbi Chaikim. Every single week, he would call me up and tell me, it's now your job to visit this little city. You're going to find 14 Jews. These are their names. This is their husband's name. Every name was a Goyish name. They were Jewish girls who, after the war, were very sick. What does very sick mean? They weighed 60 pounds or less. And the Scandinavian countries, especially Sweden, undertook to take these girls and to nurse them back to health. There was a very great Litvischer Rav, Rabbi Jacobson, I think his name was, and Jakobson, and he took with him hundreds of girls, but he left hundreds back. They were not ready to go. They were still sick. They were not nourished back to health. All these girls, Rahman al-Islam, they all intermarried. Goyim, nice Goyim, but Goyim. Who were the Goyim? They were the male nurses who brought them back to health. And you would see beautiful Hungarian Jewish women, and they were married to tall Swedish men, and who treated them very nice. All their children were Jewish. And what did Reb Chaikin want me to do? To meet up with them, and to talk with them, to remind them that they're Jewish, to remind them that there's a Rebbe who happens to be in Brooklyn, who's thinking about them and their future, about their parents and grandparents who died, Al Kiddush Hashem, and not to lose the chance and the seed of losing them. And it so happens that Rabbi Chaikin said that I want to prepare you for 2-3 weeks to be in Norway. You're going to be in the deepest snows. There'll be no cars on the street. There'll be dogs, huskies, who will take you up, and they will bring you to a log cabin. They'll be freezing by day and freezing by night. So I'm going to prepare you for everything. And you're going to take a group of Jewish boys and girls, all university and college graduates, and those who attend college. They're all Jewish. Their mothers are Jewish. Their fathers, 99% are all Goyim. And you're going to sit and argue and debate with them about the greatest question in the 60s. And that is 1962, 3, 4. And the question was, how old is the world? Is the Jewish calendar correct, or is it the Goyish Gregorian calendar? And the Rebbe gave out a pamphlet in English about it. And Rabbi Chaikim took this pamphlet and he translated it into Swedish and to many other countries' languages. And it was my job to sit and learn with them about the 10 Makos, and to learn with them Parshas Bo, the 10 Makos, and he gave me a chumash that came from the König's Bibliothek, which is the king's library in Copenhagen, and he also gave me the Rebbe's pamphlet, and he bought me specially warm garments that I should be able to be protected from the tremendous cold and that I was going to encounter. And he gave me wonderful svarim. In case they'll ask this question, you'll find this answer in Torah Tamima. In case they ask this question, you'll find this answer. And that was my job. I prepared myself. He gave me food. He treated me like a father treats his son. And he was a wonderful role model, a very alert man. He understood everything from A to Z, and I did everything he told me. I met up with all these hundreds of boys and girls, and I taught them Torah for 2-3 hours during the day. We took out the Rebbe's pamphlet. They all had copies of it, and we debated, was the Rebbe right? Was the Rebbe wrong? Was God right? Was the Christian calendar right? And we enjoyed ourselves. They had something up their sleeves. They wanted to see the rabbi who was so strong-minded. How does he know how to use a pair of skis? They were proficient in it, and I did not know how to put on a pair of skates. How much more to put on skis? I also knew that I'm 6 foot and I don't know the aleph base of what skiing is about. I also knew that if I fall down, I will lose my whole role model as a Rebbe, as a teacher, because if you don't know how to ski and you fall on your head and you smash your hands and your feet and you're broken laying in a cast, you're not much of a Rebbe anymore. And so therefore I knew one thing: I have to find the right excuse to find out why I am not going skiing with them. But I knew the truth very well, that once they see me down on the floor, it's all over with. And so therefore I hit my secret. I came up with a million different excuses, but I spent the 3 weeks with them, and we had a very nice time. And I answered their questions that they asked me, and I enjoyed the debate, the challenge, and so on. And so did they. And it so happened at the end of everything, I told them that they should know that they're Jewish, their mothers are Jewish, and their fathers are Goyim, and that they have nothing to do with Goyim. They're 100% Jewish children. And there was a man called Mr. Guterman, and he spent a lot of money to bring me to visit them, and he also had a place where they could go to Eretz Yisrael, where they could get married to Israelis, and they have a future among the Jewish people. And when I finished the shlichus in the Scandinavian countries, and I was about to return after the shlichus of Merkez to Crown Heights, Rabbi Chaikin called me up in Scandinavia before I boarded the plane that day, and he said, "Listen, Binyomin, don't go to the airport. It's not necessary. There's a terrible thing that happened right now in Scandinavia. The chief rabbi of Sweden just now died. The Kehillah is crying. They need Chabad to go up to send them a chazan, a balkoira, a man who knows how to blow the shofar, about Dokeya, and somebody to speak. And I heard from my father, your Rosh Yeshiva, who he said that you know how to daven, and you know how to lane with the nusach, and you know how to blow shofar, and you know how to speak." I said to him, "Rabbi Chaikin, let me tell you something. Whatever your father said about me is true, but I want to tell you there's a mistake here. There are 2 Binyomin Katzes. I have a cousin. He knows all these things. I know nothing. I wish I knew these things over here. It's a cousin, somebody else. It's not me. He has the same name. We're cousins." And that was the answer I gave him. Didn't help me. He says, "Binyomin, there's no cousin. My father told me about you. And you are going to do this here, whether you want or not, because I'll tell you a secret. I lost your return ticket to America. I don't know where I put it. It's lost. And therefore you have to stay there anyway. So you won't daven. So the people will be without a laning, without kiyah shofar, without someone to speak. Listen to me. Give in. Throw in the towel. Make off like you know who the other Binyomin Katz is. Lane, blow shofar, what does it mean to you? Do it." Anyway, what could I tell you? 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 Let me tell you, I was caught. No way did I wanted to stay. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to United States. I wanted to finish the shlichus. I had enough. I wanted to have a good meal already. I wanted to see Rabbi Mangel, be a part of the Shabbos table, listen to him, and to go back to Crown Heights and to see the nice, warm Jewish people. I wanted out. But I had no way out. Anyway, coming to what happened is a very simple thing, that I spoke, and he warned me, don't talk fast, take your tzitzis of the talis and put it tightly on your finger. And remember, not more than 14, 15 minutes. You must have a story, You must have a good beginning and you must have a good end. And that is important. I said, what am I going to talk about? Go over to the people of the Kehillah and talk to them and ask them that question, what is needed? And whatever they tell you, use that as the centerpiece, the main focus of whatever you're going to talk about. And that's exactly what I did. And they told me they have a cheder, nobody sends their kids to it, and they're all afraid to be recognized as Jews. They all are from Hitler, and they're all shamed, and so on. And that is what to be called Jews, because they saw what happened to Jewish people, and that is the story. So I remembered everything, and I remembered how to talk fast, and I remember not more than 14 minutes, and there were two shuls. One was called Nibrogatten, and the other Adas Yeshurin, and the other one was St. Paul's Gatten, two different streets, two different congregations, and I spoke in both of them. I did everything that Rabbi Chaikim told me to do. After that, I got a telegram from Rabbi Chaikim, and he said, I must tell you, you got a telegram from the Rabbi, and the Rebbe's mother passed away, and you sent a Nichum Avelim with all of us, and your name was on it, and the Rebbe wrote back in the telegram something to you. I cannot exactly make it out, but my son opened it up. It's filled with abbreviations in Russia Tevison, and you have to come back, and it appears to me it has something to do with Russia. I understood very well what it was all about, and I came back. I looked at the telegram and I saw the telegram. The telegram more or less said these words, that I should have Hatzlacha in Rotzu V'Shuv, Hatzlacha Rabbi and Rotzu V'Shuv, and that's what the telegram said, and nothing more than that. I prepared myself to go to Russia. I was told that I will visit 10 cities. I have to go to an office called Intourist in Copenhagen, and I have to answer many questions from the Intourist. They want to know about my education. They wanted to know what I wanted in Russia, about my family, and they wanted to have all the money in advance for all my hotels, all my taxis, and all my planes that would take me from city to city. I was told not to write the city called Tashkent, but to make a excuse to get into Tashkent, but only at the very end of my traveling. And my job was to Amcha Yisrael, the nation of Israel, has to come out of Russia. And the way that I understand it, that the Rebbe wanted that the immigration should start, and it should not be 6 or 7 people leaving Russia every year and nothing more. And these 6 and 7 people were all people in their late 70s, 80s, and definitely were not going to live very much longer, and they were going to be buried in Israel. But these people, the Rebbe wanted to be Amcha Yisrael, young people, young families, and my job was simple: to keep my mouth shut. Never to mention the name Lubavitch, never to mention the Rebbe's name. Everything that I did in Scandinavia with the students and with the people, to let them know that the Manik Hador is thinking about them, and to spread out the Rebbe's name, how he is thinking about the young children that were left over in Scandinavia by Rabbi Jakobson, and the future of these children. Every person that I met talked about how the Rebbe has a relationship with them, because he is the Nasi of the door, and he's thinking about everyone. And now the job is the opposite. And my job is to find out the names of thousands of Jews, and then later I will be using it somehow or other. What? I did not know. And this is exactly what I did. I went into Intourist. I came with a pile of money, cash, and all the secrets. Who gave the money? How did the money come? And all the details, which city. Nobody in the world knows except one person alive today, and his name is Harav Ezriel Chaikim. He is the only man that knows the inside story. Even I, a man close to 70, a grandfather of many children, I know absolutely nothing. I have hunches, I have good ideas, but 100% I don't know. What I do think is the following. Some of this I picked up from a great man whose name was Reb Shalom Doiber Berke Wolf. A little bit I picked up from other people, but clearly I don't know. I believe that the only person alive today would be Reb Israel Chaikin, who knows, and he never told me. And the idea was that the Israeli government had heard from the Russian government that tomorrow all the Russian Jews could leave, but they need visas, and that would be impossible because nobody had any contact with the outside world. Nobody outside knew who was inside alive and where they were, and nobody inside Russia knew who was outside where they lived. So all communications after the wars and after living by Stalin and Khrushchev and so on, everybody was dying in Siberia. Nobody knew where the other person was. Nobody knows where anyone goes to sleep. No one knows. Everybody's constantly running away from the Enkivider and from their own shadow. And so therefore, that would be a major problem. But once I would meet the people, and they would be willing to mention their names, and I would have their addresses by hook or crook, then we can make a visa. But I was not told anything. My job was only to be connected with Amcha Yisrael. And so therefore, my job was never, ever to meet up with a Lubavitcher, because they are not Amcha Yisrael per se. Never go to a Chassidische Fabringen, Marina Rocha, or any other place. Always to stay away from all Lubavitcher, like you stay away from fire, and to be with Amcha Yisrael, and never ever to mention the Rebbe's name. And this is the story how after 2 weeks after I gave in all the information and they had all the money, they could either accept me to go to Russia or they could reject me. And they accepted me, and on the day I prepared everything. I heard the last day in preparation, terrible news. And the news was that American university man who was caught passing out all different types of information about the life of democracy and how people live in America, and he was passing all this here out all over Russia, and he was caught, and there was a picture of him passing out pamphlets of what the life of freedom is about. And the Russians caught him red-handed, and they put him into a cell, and he was not permitted to be visited by any American ambassador until 3 days. In other words, the Russians wanted to be with him for 3 days first. But he was still alive, and I heard this news, and I happened to prepare myself to go to Russia, and I still recall how I lived together with Rabbi Avram Ozdeber and his family, young family, and I recall how he treated me so nicely. And here I was picking up my laundry to clean it, to wash it, a laundrette, and I was passing the king's palace, and it was quiet, and I was deep in thought. How am I going to do this? What's going on? What if they catch me? And so on. And I did my laundry, and I came back to Rabbi Avram Ozdeber's house. And as I was passing on the way, the king's palace, there was a tremendous crowd. I didn't see a crowd. I did not notice anybody, and I walked right into the whole process, and everybody was laughing their heads off, and I saw and I heard the laughter, and I was walking with a bag of laundry on my back, stooped over in deep thought, and I said to myself, what are they laughing? And a second flash, just go Oisa Shalom, just go backwards a little bit, and you'll be out of sight because you came into the change of the guard, and this is what the whole tumult is about. Exactly what I did. And it was quiet. I was behind the building. Where I turned the corner, I was right back, and I was back to my own thoughts. Anyway, I waited for the change of the guard. I went over to Avram. I told him, Rabbi Avram Ozdeber, I'm in big trouble. I don't know what to do. He spoke it over with Rabbi Chaikin, and before you knew it, there was an answer from 770. Nothing to worry about. You're going to go, and there's no way out now. But the only thing is that the Rebbe advises that every single day you should take 10 5, 10, 15 postcards, gluyot, and you should write down the weather and how you feel good and send it to all parts of the world, to your friends in South Africa, Koppelbacher, to your friend Rabbi Turk in Manchester, to your friends in Chicago, to your family in New York, to your family all over, to the people in Canada, to people all over the world, whatever you know, and nothing less than 5 or 10 should go every day. The Russians then will know that you are not plain person that no one knows about, you're connected with the world, and before they touch or do anything with you, they know, they'll think that the world is listening and they know what's going on. So you won't be a person who just fell off the map, but everybody will know something about a person called Binyomin Katz. And that was the answer, and I was willing to understand everything that I had to go through. Then Rabbi Chaikin sat down with me and explained to me Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav, Zayin. And then we went on to Ches, Tes, Yud. And we went through all the details. When you get off that plane, you're not going to get off that plane. You are going to sit on the plane until they call you, and they're going to call everybody up and give back their passports. You're not going to get your passport without sweating it through. There's going to be a group of soldiers with their armory out, and they are going to watch every step of you. They're going to eye you from your head to your toe and back and forth. They're going to make you look dizzy, and they are going to give you the business and break you down physically, like you'll fall apart. Get ready for it. All you have to do is simple. You take a perek of Tanya, you take a Gemara, you plaster it over them, and look at that page of Tanya, look at that page of Gemara that you know about Peh, Hirschsprung style, and you will not feel anything. That is the remedy. And I saw everything as he told me. He knew everything A to Z, Rabbi Chaikin. And let me tell you that everything he told me was true. And I sat down with him and I learned 140 words that I had to know in Russian, so I shouldn't have to wait around in the hotels until they let me have a cup of hot tea. I should know how to say, I want to have a cup of hot tea. Ya hachu, stakan chai. And they would laugh a little bit, the way the American says these Russian words, but the message was good enough. Don't you ever try to learn more, because then for sure you'll be a spy. The little you know, the better it will be. Remember, never open your mouth. Your job is to be silent. Your job is to be as quiet and act dumb as you could and act like you don't know what they're talking about. Exactly what I did. I came down to get my passport. They told me to sit down. They had an English translator. They waited till the soldiers came in, and from the cockpit they called everyone up, and you saw everybody shaking. I didn't shake. Then they got my luggage. They brought us all to the hotels. They gave me a hotel called Ukraina. It was far away from the shul. My job was to sit in shul early morning to early afternoon, and to just be there and listen, and with my eyes, what my eyes see. Don't you open your mouth. And I would come 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up very early. The ladies of the hotel, the older ladies, they took big saws and many different types of hammers, and they would break the ice with their hands, and they would make a path for me. I would go to a hotel, and I would just tell them that I'm going to the great shul, the synagogue Bolshoi, and that's all I had to say, and which means the great synagogue, and he would say Archipova, and I would shake my head and say Da. And every single morning, the exact same thing. I came to show, a man came, and he looked like a very pleasant person. Truthfully speaking, he was the opposite. And he made me feel very comfortable. He took off my jacket, and he says, you tourist, you sit here. He told me, du bist da sitzen. So I sat there. Didn't take too long, and the lights of the show were very dim. and we were davening in a place called the Kirshenbaum, and it was very, very simple that in this shul, it appeared you could do many different things. There was an old, worn-out tallis, very, very worn. I picked the tallis up, covered my face with it, and davened with it. Before you knew it, I was a little bit closer to the middle of the shul. Before you knew it, I was sitting next to a place, and the shamus walked around, and he said, "We're looking for a chazan, wir sucht a chazan." And that was one of the things that I had to do, daven as much as possible, because when you daven, whether you know about it or not, you are blowing shofar, you're making it known that you are here. And the people would ask, who is this young boy? Who is this chazan that came? Who is he? Such a young boy, such a young voice. And that was the idea, to let people know that somebody is here in shul, an American chazan is here. And that's exactly what I did. I davened for the Omid every time I had a chance, and every time the Gabbai of the shul, his name was called Rabbi Noach, would walk around and he'd be looking for a chazan to daven, whether it was Rosh Chodesh or whether it was a regular davening. I would grab the opportunity and I would go to the Omid, and I began to hope that maybe now I'm going to break through the ice, but that was not the case. It took more than 3 weeks before I got a wink from a person that he had interest in looking at me. Everybody looked the other way. No one gave me eye contact. Nobody gave me the right of the day. The first time I had any contact with Russian Jews, but these were not the Jews that I saw upstairs davening. That was on Erev Shabbos. I went to the mikveh, and I came in and I saw a group of people, and these people were all going to the mikveh. I looked at them as they got undressed. All I saw was bare skin. There was no flesh on them. I saw skeletons of people, and they were going to the mikveh. And so I got undressed, and I noticed they were watching over me. No one said a word, but when I went down the first 2 steps of the mikveh, somebody yelled out, "From wann kommt der Yid?" And I never answered, because I was told by Rabbi Chaikin to keep my mouth quiet, and therefore I ignored the question. Before I took the next step, somebody yelled out, "From Brooklyn?" and I kept my mouth shut. I never said anything, but I shook with my head for the yes. Then the next question was the next step, from the Rabbi, and I shook my head, yes. And I went down to the mikveh. I came up, and behold, the Lord, I had no towel, and all of a sudden I had 15 towels. Everybody was there to dry me, and they started to talk to me in a low voice. "Wie bist du Shabbos?" And I told them, "In Geizins, in the hotel." And they said to me, "Für was kommst du nicht aus Eurech zu mir?" And there was a fight. "Für was ist der? Zu mir, zu mir, zu mir." Before I knew it, I was invited all over. I was dying for the opportunity to meet up with these people. But that is what I saw. It didn't take more than a minute. Everybody is doing something that I don't begin to understand. The conversation of inviting me is over with. Everybody is now taking the buttons on his rubashki, on his shirt. And everybody is buttoning and buttoning and buttoning and rebuttoning, and everyone's looking at the floor, and everybody's looking like they're a naughty boy. I couldn't understand the change of the climate inside that mikveh. Here everybody was climbing all over me and fighting. Who is going to take me for Shabbos? I'm dying to meet them. And here everybody turned out to be nothing more than a dead puppet, a dead battery that doesn't work, and they're all gazing on the floor. I don't see what's on the floor. And all of a sudden I remembered that the Frierdiker Rebbe said about Russia that it's not 6 sides, east, west, south, north, up, down. There are 7. There's one hidden place also. You have to watch out. And I looked around the room, and there I saw it. I saw the door of the mikveh opened, and I saw an ear with a head sticking in a bit, and the man who always gave me comfort upstairs, who took off my jacket and happened to greet me every morning, and by taking off my jacket and sitting me in a certain place of the shul, that is the man who's listening to everything, what's going on in the mikveh, and now the people are quiet because they were all caught in the act of inviting me. I was the first one who buttoned up my shirt, and I ran upstairs, and on the darkness of the steps going up, I happened to hear voices, and somebody in the dark said to me these magic words. Ich bekomme einen Brief von einem Jid, was heißt Minkovic von Crown Heights. Und sagt, der Rebbe sagt, das, und schreibt sie mir einen Brief. Is there ein Ish Nemon? Is fan as a Mensch, man kann ihm glauben? And I said, a Nomen wie Minkovic kann man glauben. I went further, a man stopped me, and he already was not from the Anash, and he asked me a question, a very interesting question. Why by Kedusha do they jump 3 times up? What is the reason for it? And I tried to give him an answer explaining to them the 3 groups of angels. Each one understands about godliness on his level, and each one says Kadosh on his level about God. Nobody could say that they grabbed God by their feet. Each one could say they're separated, because the word Kadosh does not only mean holy, it also has the connotation of separation, and the greatest, how separated the mundane is from holiness, and that is some of the meanings of why we say 3 times Kadosh and we jump, like the angels do in heaven. As I went further, another person came, and he asked me if I saw Chonya Morozov's talus. I had no idea what he was talking to, but later I understood that it was a man called Chonya Morozov, and he made talesim, and that and the question about the talus really was if they knew his burial, if he was still alive. Do we in America know about it? And it had something to do with that issue. Finally, I came to the place where we wash Al Netilas Yadayim, and it was light upstairs, like this all the way. It was very, very dark. There wasn't any light to talk about, only a little glare. But upstairs, met the Shoichet. His name was called Rabbi Shevitz. It was also quite quiet in the dark, and he said that he heard that I don't have a place to be, and he was thinking that maybe I would sleep with him together in the shul, and he's the Balkoira, he's allowed to sleep, and maybe he would find permission for me to sleep also, and we'll be tonight in the shul. As I was saying Tillim and waiting and so on, he was shechting the oifis that people brought, Rabbi Yankiv Shevitz, and then around 11:30 he started to daven, and I heard him say something in davening, when he came to Vayivarech David Esad Hashem, and then he took the word David and he started to sing a new idea in davening with David HaMelech, Vayivarech David Es Hashem, David, and he said in Yiddish very loud to me as if he was praying, camouflaged. He was said, David od Ga'asert Yichud, David in Gemara Ga'asert Yichud, Yichud is Osir. And that's all he said. He was looking someplace, but I heard what he said, so I immediately understood that tonight I'm not going to sleep in the shul. I am not going to be together with him. All those plans are finished with, and I would be Shabbos myself in my hotel, and that is the way I spent my first Shabbos. I sat there learning Gemara and Nedarim, and I had with me my Tanya, I had with me my Siddur, and I had with me a very interesting Sefer, that Shailis V'Tshuvah, a very beautiful sefer from the Rabbonim of Ungarn, and it was a very good sefer, and I have had these here just to keep me at peace in my mind. I also had a very big newspaper, New York Times, and that I took with me because that was camouflage to show how I was a very good American citizen, and that I was a man who had shaykhs to the outside world. Anyway, in short, day after day, went by, and all I did was try to get the ice to melt and to meet up with some people in the shul. And when I say meet up, I don't mean meet up like one would do in a cafeteria. I mean to get eye contact with one human being in the shul. It never happened. 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by. Nothing happened in that shul. Everybody who saw me moved away from me. No one gave me eye contact. Once in a while I would hear something and I would try to put the puzzle together, and every single day in shul I would wake up 5:30 and they would not clear off the ice for me at the entrance of the hotel. I would enter a taxi. It would take me to the big shul, and I would see every 35 minutes another group of people would come in and daven, and I looked at their faces and everybody looked away from me. Everybody stared on the floor, in their sitter, in the ceiling. Nobody seemed to have any eye contact with me. In the 4th week, the last week that I was there in that city, I began to break the ice, and a man approached me. It appeared no one was around. It happened his name was Mordechai Hansen, and there was David Hansen's brother. And David Hansen was famous in Eretz Yisrael. He was a man who was a big Rosh Yeshiva, a big man of Torah, a man, a dayan, a man who knew the Shulchan Aruch inside, outside, backwards, forwards, upside down. That was Reb David Hansen. I knew Reb David Hansen before. I had great respect for him, and I haven't seen people who could match his Torah or anything like that. Here was his older brother, and I heard about his older brother, how he sat for 10 years in prison, and Mordechai was a man who was sitting not far from me, and before you knew it, he came a little bit closer. Before you knew it, he was closer, and before you knew it, he had a Gemara open, the Gemara Shabbos, and before you knew it, he was singing songs to me about David HaMelech, how he died on the holiday of Shavuos, the Gemara in Shabbos, and before you knew it, he was so close to me that I didn't have to go up to turn to look at him anymore. He was staring me in the eyes, and when no one was looking, and as it appeared, he was talking about David HaMelech, David HaMelech lebt noch. And I looked at him and I figured out that he is David Hansen's brother. And I took my head, turned it away from him, and I said to him 3 magic words: David ben Menachem Mendel lebt. So I said to him. He got all frightened and he said, "Wer?" And I said, David ben Menachem Mendel. And the voice came from a different direction. Von Waden weißt du, als heißt Menachem Mendel, dein Tate. I said, kommt zum Rebbe und kommt a schöne Aliyah und alle sind mechabed. Alle verstehen, wer David is, Odom Godel B'Torah. And you're not going to find too many people who know Torah like David Hansen, Reb David Hansen. And Rav Kook says that when he goes to Switzerland, he takes with his Shas with him. Who is his Shas? Reb David Hansen is his Shas, and he takes him with him. And it so happens that he was so surprised that I knew about his brother, and all he whispered to me, looking the other way, looking in the Gemara, and he said to me, Zolar Meshikin Aviza, Ich starb da. And that was the thought of every single Jew that I met. Shik mir Aviza. And so therefore, I got his name down, and I got other names down, and before you knew it, another few days went, and the ice melted. I knew everybody's name in shul. One man I did not know. One man was far up in the shul, in the Chabadski wing of the shul, in Archipova, and I couldn't get him. Today was my last day in shul, because tomorrow I'd be flying to Rostov. And I made an effort in the middle of Kedusha quietly to sneak up to him and to see if I could get his name, because I noticed from his eyes that he wanted to talk to me, but no way could I ever go to the place and position in shul where he was. He was standing in a place where Rabbi Levin would be davening, and now Rabbi Levin was away, and there was a man called Rabbi Schwarzblatt, and Rabbi Schwarzblatt, I was warned, happened to be working for the government, and I would have a hard time trying to sneak myself up in that position. But being that the man's eyes and tears were very, very heavy on my heart, I took the chance knowing that this would be the last day, and I went up there, and all he could say to me in the middle of Kedusha was that Gruzman, Kfar Chabad, is the relative. That's all, and his name was Gruzman also, and he was a relative, and that's all I needed to know. Anyway, I was about to move away, and all of a sudden, something happened in the show. Something unbelievable happened right then and there. This lovely man who always used to invite me into the shul and sit me down, that the people of the shul happened to name him as a man who is Lav Bar Inishu, that this man is not a real person, he's more of a ghost working for the Satan. So this man took me by my hand, he tapped me on my shoulder, and he said to me, it's time that I leave the show because there are 9 people waiting for me and they want to talk to me, and since I will be the 10th one, you always like to daven with a minyan, and you always stay here from the morning until the early time of mincha, and then you come back later at night again for another 3 hours. You like minyanim, you tell people, and therefore there's a minyan waiting for you. I understood everything that he said. I also understood everything that he didn't say. My heart began to dance out of its box. I could not control myself, and I heard what he said, and he took me by force. And he, with another man whose name was called Rabbi Ephraim Kaplun, who happened to be the president of the shul, who used to lift up his fist to me many times and warn me, if I catch you talking, looking at anybody, I'll beat you that you'll forget your name. I'll beat you and I'll make you into chop suey. And he would give me all different types of threats. And he would do all types of crazy things to put something in my mind the last week when people would perk up and to look at me and have eye contact. He was there to make sure that it would be monitored by him, to be the minimal of all minimals. And so therefore when the people would look at me, they would write their names down at home, and when no one seemed to be looking, I would take my tallis and I would cover my siddur. They would quietly go into the dark shul and lift up a page of my siddur, and they would put their name down, and I would see from a distance who is putting a paper down. Then I would go put on my tallis, take the siddur, look through the pages as I went down to the bathroom, so to say, and I would take the paper out. In the bathroom, I would sit and study the name and try to put it on the forehead of the person who I saw, who gave me that name, and then I would come up again. I noticed that in the bathroom, there was a saw-out cue that anybody could look who is sitting there, what he's doing. So I always would make sure to look at the bottom of the door to see the footsteps coming, and I would review the name, put it in my memory bank on the forehead of the person, and then I would take the paper and I would tear it down to thousands of pieces, whatever I could, and I would just have it go down and flush it down. That's the only way I figured out that I could save the opportunity of helping these people and not getting caught myself. And it so happens I would do this there constantly, maybe 20 or 30 times or 40 times a day, because I was there for many hours in shul, and I picked up tremendous amount of names, but only on the last week. Finally, I got to know everyone, and here's this man, I caught him also, and now they caught me, and I told the man I would like to go to the minyan. I will go to the minyan. He should take his hands off me, because I want to finish this minyan first, and then I'll go to the other minyan. I was playing for time, and I wanted to be able to, my heart to stop racing, and that I should be able to come to myself. And Baruch Hashem, my idea was good. The both of them grabbed me, the right hand and the left hand, just like you take a chassan down to the chuppah. They took me through the cold old horse shul. We left a small Chabadski steeple shul that could hold maybe 80 to 100 people, and we went through the shul, and every step my heart began to go again to build up fear, and it came to the door, and I spoke to myself. They opened the door, I had to go in, and my eyes were very heavy. I could not open up the guts to do this, and I spoke to myself and I said, I'm doing all the wrong things. I encouraged myself, I must have the guts to go through, I must do it. And I gave a fast, wild look at everyone in the shul before I walked in that room, which is probably the sukkah during the Chag HaSukkos, and during the year there's a meeting room, and I gave a fast look, and all goyim, you saw the chazer on their faces, but in the corner there was David Hansen. I came in, he greeted me, he asked me to sit down, he spoke to me in Yiddish. He had many questions, 16 questions to ask me. All of them were very interesting questions, and he did something unbelievable for me. He asked me the questions, I gave him the answers, and then he repeated everything over for all the goyim. In other words, I had time to answer, and he had time to remedy all my mistakes. If I said anything out of turn, if I said anything that would incriminate me, he knew in his own good mind how to fix up every answer. The questions were questions: who sent you here? And what is the name of your family? Why did you come here? Who paid for your trip? And what organization are you working for? And what yeshiva did you learn? Who taught you how to daven chazonis? Why do you know who taught you how to read the Torah? And why do you talk to people in shul? And is it true that America is called the Golden Medina? How do we understand that? I heard all the questions, and they went minachomor el akal, the heavy questions, and before you knew it, the lighter questions, the lighter questions, the lighter questions. Whatever I answered him, it made no difference. He was a smart man, and he knew exactly what to answer. When it came to the question, who gave you the money for all these trips over here? You're paying $180 in the nicest hotel, and you are paying top dollar in every single samlot, which means airplane. Where'd you amass all this money? And I explained to them that I am a son of a very rich man. Thank God. I visit every single year. I steal the afikoman from my father. I visit the whole world, and now Moscow is next. And he knew what to say, what not to say. I left it to him because he was a bright man, and I left everything up to him. They all shook my hand when I got done. They were sorry why they called me in. They told me not to talk to anybody in shul anymore, not to look at faces, and I said that Moscow was a very nice place. I saw a lot of Yiddishkeit here. I saw minyanim. I saw many minyanim a day, people sitting and learning Gemara, and I saw things that I would never believe that they are here. Wonderful place, and how the food is good in the hotel. Anything good that they might want to hear, they all shook my hand, and they all asked me forgiveness why they had to bother me, and to sit down and to be a part of them for this half an hour, whatever it took. I was very happy. And what happened that night, I came to shul again, as always, and a group of people from the city of Punovich were going to leave the next morning, and in my hotel there was a great gathering, and they were singing songs, and Zionistic songs, Yiddish songs, and they asked me to come and to be a part of it, and to sing beautiful songs of any type of song I would like, but long, it's a Jewish song. And I sang Chabadkim Nigunim to them, and they enjoyed it. I never said anything that they were from Chabad, but some people picked it up, and others didn't. It made no difference. They had government permission to do it, and in my hotel, Ukraine, they invited me to the 3rd floor. I was on the 30th floor to come and to visit all the people and to see everybody, and the government gave the okay, and I did. These people were leaving very soon, and all their relatives from all over Russia were coming to say goodbye to them, and this was like granted by the government permission. And they granted me permission. I could come downstairs and to sing for the people, because right now, as far as everybody was concerned, I was a chazan. Now in the show, in the last week, there was one man, his name comes to mind, and his name was called Rabbi Kinelsky. He was without a beard, and he would give me all the eye indications, what I should do, and everything from a distance, under a talus. And one day, he mentioned to me in a whisper, no one seemed to be around, that I should put on my coat immediately, and I should walk outside, because there are a tremendous amount of Ba'al Tshuva that are mental futterfas made, and I should greet each one of them. And I asked him, how do I greet them when I'm not allowed to talk to them? He says, greet them with your eyes. And greet everyone by looking in their eyes and wishing them with a whisper. You're a kohen, give them a bracha, and no loud voice, no voices have to be heard. And I went over to Yankel Elishevitz, who was a shochet all the way in the back of the show, and I saw it was quiet, and I took a knife as if I was playing around with shchita, and I told him that I got from Kinelsky a command right now to go down outside and to put on my coat and meet 20 or 30 Ba'al Tshuvas that Futterfas made, and should I do it, or is it I'm putting my life on the line? He says, fold him. Listen to him. I listened to him. I put on my coat. I had a hat which was called a shlappe, and I saw him in the crowd, and I went between the crowd. I looked at all the people, the young men, the young women, and I was looking at every single one of them and whispering to them that they should have bracha, v'atzlach, and all the good things that God has in store for them, which means that sooner or later they should come out and be able to go to the Rebbe and learn all the chassidus that Rab Mendel Futterfas taught them. So I looked everyone in the eye, and I waited that they should have eye contact with everyone, and all of a sudden in the corner of my eye I see 3 policemen from a distance coming our way. The street was crowded with people. My heart was jumping out of its box. I did not know what to do. Kinelsky looked at the police, he looked at me, and he told me these words in Yiddish: don't you ever do what you want to do. Don't you ever do what you're thinking to do. Stay away from those thoughts. Though what we want you to do is, we're going to make some rotten, dirty jokes in Russian. We're all going to laugh. And when the police come by, you better laugh also, as if you understand Russian. You are to roar in laughter, and you are to be a part of us. When they leave, then you could do whatever you want. Don't run now, because you'll be sorry. I listened to him. I listened to everything that he said, and my heart was jumping out of the box. And the police were coming closer, and they were all roaring with laughter, and I was roaring because I wanted to live. The police left that scene, and they passed us. The crowd was big. No one could walk fast. You just push your way through. And I and the other 30 of them, everybody went a different direction. Everybody, I guess, was saved by the bell. And that is that is exactly what happened. We were all saved by the bell. But I did my job, because 2 people, Rabbi Leib Chartsonov, who happened to be in shul, a young man, and Rab Nosson Kinelsky, they were the ones who guided me, and the big man who guided me more, what I should do, when I should do it, how I should do it, and who to be afraid of, and who gave me all those big hints. That was that man called Rab Nosson Kinelsky, the only young person together with Leib Chartsonov in shul. He was saying Kaddish after his father, and they both said they had night jobs, and therefore by day they could sleep, and now they were in shul davening, one man saying Kaddish, and the other man protecting him from all evil. No other young people were in shul that I saw. It so happens that after I finished with the people of Ponevezh, I received a letter that I should go immediately back to shul. A little note was handed to me. How it got there, I don't know. Asked no questions, because there is no mikveh in Rostov, and there is a warm, clean mikveh for me in Archipova, in the shul, made by a lady called Esther Malka Bogomoini. I immediately took a taxi to the shul, and before I went into the mikveh, a lady stopped me and she said she made a clean mikveh. She heard that I am going to Rostov to be by the Rebbe Shab's Kever. There is no mikveh there, so therefore she said to me, I want you to go to the mikveh, and after you get done and enjoy this mikveh, I want you to use this beautiful clean towel. And when you get done, I want to talk to you something very important, words that come from the heart. And I don't want you to leave the mikveh before I talk to you. And I understood everything, and I did what she told me. As I was about to leave the mikveh, she said, there's no one here. She happens to have a relative whose name is Binyomin, and he is going up for trial because they caught him with a matzah bakery, and he is in big trouble. And there is another person called Kirshenbaum, and he is a moyo, and he is in big trouble. And I want you to tell the Rebbe they should pray for these two people. They should come out alive from the trial. I don't want 10 years of Siberia. I want them to live like people. I want them to be free. And the Rebbe should do something that these people should not have to go to trial and to live through such terrible times in Siberia. I heard what she said. I took down the names, and I said to her these magic words. When I come to the free world, one of the first things that I will do is that the name Bogomoni and Yitzhak Kirshenbaum, they will be on my list first. I will not forget them. She was very happy, and that night I went back to the hotel. The next morning early, I went to the airport. I took my samla to Rostov, and I went to a shul called the Kirshenbaum. I was told that there is a few Lubavitcher families, and I went to the Soldatske shul, and that was a beautiful shul. It was a tall, thin shul, and over there I met a man, and his name was Lipschitz. Before I was able even to come to the top step, there was a man over there who treated me very roughly. He took his eyes and he rolled them all over me, from my head to my toes, just like the Goyim did always to me. And he rolled them up and down and up. And I had no idea who he was. I took my eyes and I rolled them up and I rolled them down. I scrolled them up, I scrolled them down. Whatever he did to me, I gave him the exact same treatment. He didn't smile to me, he didn't say shalom to me. All he did was to put some type of a fright in me. I didn't know if he was a Jew, I didn't know if he was a goy. All I knew was I was not going to stand for it. And I rolled, and he rolled, and I rolled, and he rolled, and he scrolled his eyes, and I scrolled. This went on for like 5 to 10 times. And I took no liking to him. I walked into the shul, I heard the voices, they were just beginning to daven, and I put on my talis, an old talis, which I had now with me. I put on a pair of tefillin, everything was done, Nusa Chabad. And I offered to daven for the Yomid. I knew I would be able to buy my way if I am able to prove to them that I know davening by heart. And I know how to daven Nusachari by heart. And that worked in every single show, and that was very good for me. And I got the people to believe that I might be someone that might be interested in them. What happened? The second I got done with Aleinu, I turned around, there was nobody in shul. The shul emptied out, there wasn't a single person there. I looked around, nobody there. I put on my coat, and somebody touched my hand. It was very dark, and they told me this was the shamus of the shul. His name was Lipschitz, and he said to me something very simple. Kumarein, in the Grisa shul, come into the big shul, and I want to talk to you. Nobody is in the shul. Don't worry. Empty. Pustoi. I went into the big show. He said he heard from Rabbi Hollander, who was here many years back, a few years back, that the Rabbi sings songs, new songs every year. I would like, maybe you remember a song, maybe you could sing an old Chabad song that the Rabbi teaches Simchas Torah. And I said, all right, I remember a song, and I started to sing the song in the show. He was there with me, and he heard the way I sang the song. As I sang the song, I sang it over and louder, and I had let the voice echo in the show, and I was very happy. Rachamona dihiyone divianiye oiveyaneino. And in the back of the shul, there was a crashing noise. I hear a bunch of voices, and I'm singing Aneinu, and the people in the back are singing Aneino. Wow. I went over to Reb Lipschitz, and I said to him, "Irt mir gesagt, keiner ist nicht da in shul. You told me nobody is here. Nobody isn't here. I hear people in the back of the shul." He says, these are nothing. This is not real. Nothing to worry about. It's just nothing. He almost told me there are no people there. But I heard voices. He said, "Nice, it's a garnish. It's glatt garnish. Nothing to worry about." And I sang the song now with the correction, Aneino. And he was very happy. He asked me a few questions. Who is the Rav in Lubavitch? And who in some 70? And who is what does Yisrael Jacobson do? Yisrael Jaritzer, they called him. And they want everybody he had many different questions about many different people. I told him, and before you knew it, I had a paper in my hand written by him that says, "Take him to the Jewish cemetery," which happened to be the place of where the Rebbe Rashab was buried. And I took the taxi to the cemetery, and I was told to ask for the klutch by a man called Shloime Ish Neman. That would be the secret words. And the man who was standing in the shul on top of the staircase, who was looking me over and rolling his eyes against me, up and down, scrolling his eyes all over me from top to the bottom, that what happened to be the man. I looked at him and I recognized him. He was the man who had the key to the Rebbe Rashab's burial place, and he was the man that was scrolling his eyes all over me, and I was scrolling my eyes all over him. And he looked at me and I said, "Shloime Ish Neman, geb the schlüssel, the klutch." And he gave me the key to the Rebbe Rashab. I told him I'm a kohen, so he got three other people working in the cemetery to guide me on my right, my left, and to take me around in a circle. And it wasn't too far, a few steps to the right. We went to the Rebbe Rashab's burial place. They opened up the key with the klutch. They opened up the door with the klutch, and I went inside and I said a prayer, and the prayer was a very simple one, that God should have Rahmanis on the Jewish people like He did in the days that He went out of Mitzrayim, and not a single Jew should be left. Everybody should be able to go with all their family and with their wealth and so on. And that was more or less the bakasha. As I was sitting there and crying out these words with tears in my eyes, the man on my right grabbed me and he said, he has plenty of tzaras, and he has a sick daughter. And the man on my left said he has a sick grandchild, and the other man had his problems, and they all have sick wife. And each one begged me to go up and to say a prayer, mention their names, and which I gladly did. And before you knew it, I was out of the Rebbe Rashab's cemetery grounds, and I noticed that there were mounds buried all over, filling up that part of the cemetery. And I asked, what is the meaning? And they told me this was done specially, that nobody should be buried next to the tzaddik. There's only one person who was buried next to the Rebbe Rashab, and his name was called Reb Shmuel Gurari, and he is also distant away. Nobody else is buried there. And at that time, there were no matzeves there. There was nothing that physically to identify whose burial ground this was, but this definitely was the Rebbe Rashab's burial ground. When I left the city of Rostov, I was heartbroken. Every place I went, I met Yidden in the shul, and I noticed something terrible, that they were all invalids. This one was missing a hand, this one was missing a foot, this one was missing an arm, this one was missing fingers, and I understood that these are from the people who were soldiers in the war, and that all these people were warriors at one time, and now that they went to the hospitals daily for different types of medicines, and the whole city looked to me like a city of broken-bodied people who were in the war, Yidden Lahavdil Goyim. And this here was the shul that I went to. The name was called the Soldatske Shul. And so after I went to the second city, I went to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth, to the sixth. I went to Kharkov, and I did the same thing over there, gathered the names, the people, and so on. Then I went to a place called Tbilisi. Tbilisi is a very big part of the country called Georgia. Over there, I felt so good. I was in 770. I felt no friction, no heat, no problems whatsoever. I walked like a free man around. I didn't feel anybody tagging around with me. I felt like I was in Brooklyn, New York, walking on Eastern Parkway, and I felt so good, unbelievable. I was there for a period of time, and as I was there, I was a part of the Gruzina Yidden. They had a beautiful shul in Tbilisi on the main street, and they took good care of me. And in my hotel, they would come to visit me. I was told by Rabbi Chaikin that I should take a mimer of the Rebbe. I should learn it by heart, ois ba'os, Hirschsprung style, and I should start off saying to the people in shul the following words. As I traveled with my train today, I was thinking what King David said, Poda v'sholom nafshi, in this Perik and on this Yom in Tillim. And I should camouflage everything that of the mimer into some type of a speech that I'd be holding for the people, and it'd be that the people who were Chassidim and learned Chassidus, they would immediately know that today is Yutes Kislev, and they would immediately know what's happening and what's going on. And the other people in shul would know somebody was traveling today, and this person happened to have a thought about a chapter of Perik Yud in Tillim, and they would not be able to put together. Now in Tbilisi there are two major shuls. One of them is the Sephardic shul that I was there. They had their mikveh there, they had a Beis HaShchita there, they had everything, a Talmud Torah there for the kids. They had a shochet. I walked into his little butkela, his booth where he shechted, and who would believe it? He took me by my shoulder and he started to sing a Chassidish nigun with me, and unbelievable. And it went very far. I met an old man on the streets, and I looked at his face. I thought that this was a brother of Rav Shmuel Levitin, and he looked exactly like him. And this man over here was a Chassidish Yid, and he heard I was in town. He came out and he wanted to know if I brought any Chassidus from the Rebbe, and that's all he was interested. His name was called Reb Shmuel, and he looked like Reb Shmuel Levitin, and he happened to be a relative of Chonya Morozov Mizivik Harishon. That's what he told me, and I cannot ask too many questions. Shabbos, let me tell you that I davened in the other shul, the shul that was called in the Toothpick, which means a city, a shul that had no street, no exit on it. And this shul was like a big Ashkenazi garage, and they made it into a shul. It was Ashkenazi Yidden, and they asked me Friday night to daven for the Omid. I davened like I never davened before, and I used to weigh 250 pounds, and I bellowed through a beautiful Luchadoidi, and I took every word and I stretched it as if there was no tomorrow. And the regular davening that might take 20 minutes took an hour and a half. I sang every nigun that I put into it, and when I got done davening, they asked me to make Kiddush. That was my end. I was so hungry, so tired, and I drank the wine that they had in Gruzia. It was so strong that my head was so dizzy. It was the worst thing in the world that I ever could do. But I drank the wine, and it was impossible for me to think clearly anymore. Somebody came over to me, and they thanked me well for my davening. They haven't heard such beautiful davening from an American Jew ever. And another person came to, before I knew it, the whole show was there. Before I knew it, the women's gallery all lined up. All they wanted to do is shake my hand, congratulate me on the davening. All I wanted to do is to get away as soon as possible. The first lady lady who came to me and she wanted to grab my hand just to congratulate me. I knew a few words in Russian, and I said to her, I was half drunk, I said to her, Ruke Cholodne, which most likely meant my hand is cold. I can't give a lady a cold hand. And somehow or other, the lady understood, and it didn't take too long. Somebody stuck me in the back and tapped me on the shoulder, looked me in the eyeball, and he said to me, Ruke Cholodne, this is the way you talk to a woman who wants to congratulate you for your davening. Ruke Cholodne, this is the way you talk. Azay Retman. Then he looked me in the eyeball and he said to me, Ich weiß wer du bist, ich weiß von wann du kommst. He was talking to me words that I didn't want to hear, but I was too drunk to argue with him. And then he said to me, Du bist von der Tmimim. You are from the Tmimim of Lubavitch. Because no normal person would say such a thing to the women who only want to congratulate him for his beautiful davening. And he says, Hot nicht kein Meure, don't have any fear, everything will be good, but I know who you are. Anyway, it didn't take too long. I had a problem, and the problem was, how do I get my way back to the hotel? My head was spinning on all sides, and no way was I able to understand the direction where my hotel was. I was just walking up and down the streets like a drunk, and I was ashamed of myself. I lost myself completely. I remembered I was never allowed to drink any vodka. That was one of the rules that was passed down to me. But I didn't ever hear anything that I'm not allowed to make any kiddush and shul over wine. But this wine, was it heavy? I couldn't lift up my head. And I knew one thing, if I walk it out and I get fresh air outside, maybe I'll make it. And I walked around for an hour or two. I got that fresh air. I came to myself and I tried to figure out where the hotel was. And Baruch Hashem, I made it. I made it back to the hotel. I was so tired. And I went down, I laid down, and I thought I'll never be able to get up. But I did get up the next morning, and I heard, I went to the shul again. I davened. They asked me to daven for the Yomid, and before I knew about it, a very interesting thing happened. They asked me to daven also the later parts of davening, not only Psuki de Zimra, but I should start Shochanan, and by Shochanan, I lifted up my voice a little bit more chazonish, a little bit higher, a little bit stronger, and before I knew it, I turned around, there was nobody in the shul. It was me davening the shul emptied out. I could never figure this out. I knew in Georgia and Tbilisi, there was nobody here that I had to fear, and all of a sudden the shul empties out. One man was left. He was the president of the shul, and he told me that I should not daven anymore. I should sit down and take a rest. The people will be back. They need to have a break. What really was happening, that the Enkivider took all the people in shul and was questioning them outside what they know about me, who was I, what was I doing there, and why was my voice so loud, and they were asking them interrogation, all different types of, I didn't see any of this happened outside, and little by little the shul got repacked. I davened, and I finished davening. Here I knew that I shouldn't hang around too much. We're being watched, even though they told me that no one watches you in Georgia, but the case happened to be a different story. And what could I tell you? A very interesting thing, that as I was walking out of shul, the president happened to pass my path, and he told me that all the fear is over with. I should remember to come for Mincha and Shavashodas, and maybe Malava Malka. He didn't look at me when he said these words. He looked the other direction. But I heard what he said. The fear is over with. And so therefore, exactly what I did, I went to my hotel. I had a Suda Shabbos, whatever I had in the hotel with me. And what could I tell you? I sat down and I learned a mimer by heart. I came in for Mincha, for Shal Shudas, and they asked me to speak. And again, I started the old story as I was traveling in the train. I remember what David HaMelech said, and I said over a mimer of the Rebbe, and that was it. Before I knew it, a man got up on the table and he said to me these words, do I know anything about who the new Rebbe is? And I didn't answer, I just shook my head. Then they asked me which son of Levi Yitzchak of Schneerson, the Rov and Yekaterinoslav, which one of the three boys became the Rebbe? Was it the person who knew math very well and happened to encounter everyone with a chess game? Is it the one who, his name is Yisrael, who took care of the padushka, what type of a pillow you wanted to sleep on? Or was it the one who knew everything and was a quiet person and just smiled at everybody who came in and left? I said, I believe the one who smiled at everyone was the one. Are you sure it wasn't the one who knew how to play chess very good, backwards and forward? No, I don't think that was the one. I said, it could be. I don't know. What were their names? He says, Mendel. And they said, Beryl, Yisrael. I says, I think you're on the right track. It's Mendel. They were very happy to hear and what I had to say, and they sang with me many different nigunim, and we had a deal. Anybody who came into the show and touched the mezuzah, so that I kept on singing. When somebody came in and they sat down and show, but they didn't kiss the mezuzah, I stopped, and I was afraid who that person might be, and they understood everything. What was going on in my mind, and they would say, no, even though he didn't kiss the mezuzah, it's all right, continue with the nigunim. We love these nigunim. Amos Aikosim Mar, Kishiyafutu, Mainesecha, Chutza. They loved that nigun. I taught them many nigunim, and they wanted to know who are the great Rabbanim next to the Rebbe, and Reb Zalman Shimon Dvorkin's name happened to be a very important name by them, and Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson happened to be Rabbi Yisrael Zaritzer, they called him, very, very important person, and they wanted to know who else were the great people. I spoke to them. In the background of the Rebbe, there is a man called Reb Shmuel Levitin, and I gave some other names, and they were very, very happy. And among the people that were there was one man who sat in the corner, and he was showing me with his finger all different types of things, and I was putting a puzzle together of what he wanted from me. And when I came next to him by Olenu, I moved in his direction, and he said to me, as he was saying Olenu, looking the other direction, visit me in my house. I want to talk to you privately. Exactly what he said. I heard what he said, and when everybody left the show, I waited and I played dumb a little bit, as if I lost my way, and I remembered that that Enkevader and all the people who snitch and all the klovim, as they're called, dogs, are not around too much, and I waited till the man who was walking on a stick walked a certain amount of yards and feet a certain direction. I followed him a little bit after he went. He went 3 minutes before. I went 3 minutes later, and I remembered his footsteps. I went up to his house. I came up to his room. He closed the door, and he told me his neighbors are goyim, and they might smell something going funny here, us talking, so therefore he's going to put on his radio, his television, as loud as possible to camouflage my voice. He started asking me questions, and he was a tomim. He didn't want to give me his name because he felt that I might be one very soon under investigation, and the names will flow out. So it's better I don't know his name. But he started asking me very simple, logical questions. If I ever heard of a man called Rabbi Chaim Meir Chaikin. I says, yes, he's my Rosh Yeshiva. And he asked me, what do you learn from him that he's your? I was his chaver. And what did you learn? So I started saying over the shiurim that I remembered by heart, right then and there. And he was very happy. He was a man of great learning. He refused to give me his name. He remembered Rabbi Chaikin very well, who was my Rosh Yeshiva, and he happened to take me a part of everything and everybody who is anybody in Lubavitch, starting from Duchman, going all the way through to Reb Zalman Shimon Dvorkin. Anyway, what could I tell you? That Rabbi Yochanan Gordon's name was mentioned all over. He came from a city called Dukshitz. They were happy. They were all shachtim. And everybody in Russia moves around. And everybody's constantly different cities, different things. And everybody knows everybody. And everybody is only worried to help out the other Jew. Nobody's worried about his garments. No one is worried about their sheitel. No one's worried about their furniture or about a ring. Everybody's worried about their talus and tefillin and where they're going to sleep the next day. That's about, I guess, what's on everyone's mind. It so happens that the Jews were being chased by the Enkivider, keyword coming up, and in their shadows were chasing them also. They had the pachad of Moves that never departed from them, and in plain Hebrew, Tseil Moves, the shadow of Siberia, was chasing them every place they went. And they would look over every place 15, 20 times before they would take a chance of coming close to talk to me, even though it was the darkness of the night. And that man, he got me in his house, and all of a sudden we heard a knock at the door, even though the television was playing and the radio was playing, and I hid behind the curtains. The neighbor came in and wanted to know why the television and the radio were so loud. He says, "Oh, put it down," and that was that. Anyway, it didn't take too long, another 5 minutes. After eating some fruit, he whispered to me, "Time to go," and I jumped out of his flat. I had to run down a narrow staircase that had many openings to it, and I did it as swift as possible, hopeful no one was looking through a window. It was very late at night, closer to 12, and I ran to my hotel and no one bothered me. And that is some of the things that I recall very well in the city of Gruzia. Let me tell you, it was a wonderful city. I did not feel the heat like I did in other places. As I was in Tbilisi, ready to take my next trip to Odessa, Lvov, Riga, Moscow again, and finally to Leningrad, there was a very big commotion in the hotel. A lot of the American, Australian, foreign tourists had an idea. They wanted to break away from the group and they wanted to go to Tashkent to see a football game, or baseball game, some type of sports. I got wind of it and I went down to the main office and I said, "I want to go." They told me, "You cannot go." I said to the man, "I am the boss. I pay money. I am going to tell you where I want to go, and you better listen to me." I never spoke so forceful to a person. And he said, "Your itinerary says tomorrow, Saturday, you are going to go to Odessa." And I said, "I am not going to go. I never travel on a Saturday. I'm not going to travel now." He says, Look at my copy. He had a carbon copy, and instead the letters of the carbon were not pressed down deep enough. And by me it says that I'm going on Sunday. By him it says that it was on Shabbos. And so therefore that was the misunderstanding. I couldn't get anything through his head, and I yelled at him, and he yelled back at me in a broken English, and I yelled more. Didn't take too long. I had a headache and I had fever, and I asked him for an aspirin, and he gave me an aspirin. Then I cooled off, he cooled off, and then I said to him, "I want to go to a tent." He says, "All right, you could go. That means you could go on Sunday on Shabbos, instead of going on Shabbos to Odessa. I will let you go on Sunday, as you say, to Tashkent. This will be a change in an itinerary, and you're going to have to pay heavy for it." I says, "What does that mean?" "So you're going to have to pay for a knas, which means a penalty for changing your itinerary. You're going to have to pay for the samlot, which means for the airplane. You're going to have to pay for the hotels." I said, "How much money are we talking about?" He gave me a bill 500, 8. He ratted it all up. Before I knew it, here's the money. Right here. All right. He was happy. I was happy. And I went to this forbidden city called Tashkent. Tashkent, Lubavitch had a tremendous amount of hidden yeshivas all over. They had young Bachrim who would sit and learn day and night. Every Bacher would sit and learn a mimer of the Rebbe, Kirshenbaum style, word for word. I came into Tashkent and I asked the taxi to go up and to show me the old market, the old market. Over there in the old market there was a shul called Bukhara Shul, and the Bukhara Shul is where Chabad was hiding, where Chabad Chassidim would gather in the courtyard of the Bukhara Yidden. Rabbi Simcha Gordetsky happened to be the Rav of these Jews, and before I went to Russia, he happened to meet me once on a street in Crown Heights. He was by the Rebbe. He was walking very slowly, and he was talking very much to me as about a man called Nanis, Laser Nanis. And he happened to say that he writes to him, telling me the whole story. Indirectly, I recalled everything that he told me, that he does not know what day he was born. That means Simcha Gordetsky has a passport, a visa, a passport, a paper that his papers show, but he does not know what Simcha Gordetsky in Israel is writing to him and sending him a visa for him to fill out. He does not know how to fill out the date and relationship with Simcha Gordetsky, whose name is now changed to a different name, and Simcha Nanis is a brother, a lost brother. He does not know how to make the connection because the Russian government takes all the information and happens to rub it out with crayons. And so therefore he sees nothing, and he would love to come out, and he happens to be in the city of Tashkent, and it's my job now to meet up with him and to give him verbally, mouth to mouth, my mouth, his ear, the important information. So I had that stored away. I've had also a very big package of Mamorim that were the years of Tafshin Yudalot and Tesvav that the Rebbe said, and these Mamorim everything was printed by typewriter on onion paper, very light paper. And I always had these Mamorim with me and with my personal garments, and always wearing them and always had them with me. It so happens when I came to Tashkent, I knew exactly about the Bukhara Shul, and I knew where I was going to meet on the Anash. Friday night, I had to struggle to get to the bus at the right time, and by accident I took the wrong bus. When you hurry, you waste time, and instead of taking bus number tramvai number so and so 15, I took the 5, and I noticed that the bus went to a different section of town, of new buildings, new apartments, new skyrisers, and I knew that where the Anash live and where they daven is the old section. So less brera. Without any brera, I did the following. I happened to take the few kupkes that I had left from the transportation ticket that I bought, and I threw it down on the ground, went out, and jumped out of the tramvai, which is like a bus, and I asked the people, where is the synagogue from the Sephardic Jews, and they were laughing their heads off at me the way I spoke the few words of Russian, and I used to say to them, do you go straight, you go to the right, to the left, and I said this in Russian, priamo, which means the straight, or levo, no levo, right, left. They were laughing, but they told me, priamo, priamo, priamo. They showed me with their finger, run, 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 straight, 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 and I went. As I ran through the roads, which were not prepared to be roads, or nothing more than carts of donkeys could use them as their road, I was covered with a tremendous amount of dust. And one of the things that I was told from the Rebbe, that every single city where I go, besides being a chazan with a beautiful voice, I also have to look like a tourist, and I have to be brushed up and clean from A to Z, and no dust and no filth whatsoever. Everything should be sparkling. And here I was, covered with the filth of the earth. Every time a cart passed me, a horse, a wagon, a donkey, I would never cover another layer. I was coughing in the dust, but I knew one thing: I was getting closer to the show. I was running and running and running, hopeful I'll be able to still meet a minion there. I met the old section of town, and I did recognize the Bukhara shul and the yard around it. I did come into the yard. A man looked at me filled with dust. I took my hat. I had to punch the dust off and blow off the dust as much as possible. He looked at me and he asked me, "Wer bist du?" And I said to him, "Von Anash." And he says to me, "Was meint Anash?" And I said to him, "Der alte Rebbe schreit in Tanja wegen die Anash, wie man darf davenen. Und du fragst mir, was heißt Anash?" And he says to me, he looked at me, he picked up his boots, he ran so fast away from me, I never saw anybody run. I heard a voice inside the shul. It was a poor-looking shul. There were three small buildings, one on top of the other. It looked like a sego, two shuls and one on top. I went into the one on the bottom, and a man called Levi Pressman somehow or other recognized me from someplace, which I understand that a signal came from Moscow, a signal came from Rostov, that there's American tourist who's a chazan passing through, and that he knew about this here. When I came in, he looked at me, and according to what Noske, Kanelsky, and the others wrote about me in camouflage, he put the pieces together, and he came over to me, and he said to me, "Maybe you know how to daven? Maybe you could lead us in davening?" And I shook my head. "If there's nobody else, I'll lead you in davening." Everything was said in Yiddish. I went over to daven. I davened with everything I could. And I davened, and I stretched out the davening. I davened with every Chabad niggin that I knew. And after davening, and like every other shul, I turned around. There was nobody there. Everybody ran out of the shul. I was not surprised at this point. And Levi Pressman was hiding in a corner, and he told me, "We're afraid of you. But tomorrow there'll be a big oilam of people. You are to come tomorrow to shul, and I am going to walk with you to your hotel, because I know it's far away. I know that you'll never be able to find your way, and I am going to make off like I am a chazan. The government knows that I am a chazan. You are a chazan. We're going to sing chazanas on the way, and in the light, when there is a light on the street, we'll sing, and all the other time we are to talk. I have 1,000,001 questions to ask you about the Rabbi, about Chassidus, about things I don't understand in the Mamorim, and I want to be a part of you." And that is what he said to me. He walked with me, and he asked me all the questions, and everybody in Tashkent had one thought. The whole world forgot about them, that they'll never be able to leave Russia. They are here to die. Nobody ever thinks about them. Nobody ever knows anything about them. They are the unknown, unwanted people of the earth. They are zero, and in zero itself, zero of the zero of the zero. And that is what he said to me. I said, it's a lie what he's saying. The Rebbe talks about them. The Rebbe knows about them. And I am here to work out a deal, to find out their names, and to get them out as soon as possible. He says he can't believe it. And Reb Leivik was a very nice person. Soon as we got to the end of a street and there was some type of a light burning, we would sing many different nagunim. People happened to be listening to us, and it looked camouflaged very well. In Tashkent, when I walked down the street, I felt the heat, the friction, I felt the hate. I saw and I felt people following me. Not one person, many people following me. There could be 5, 10, 15 people talking and chatting together, with kids playing with balls, running around, and many things could be happening. And they were all dogs. They were all spies working for the government, trying to find out what in the heck is this American person doing. And I was alert and well of understanding of what was happening around me. Little did I know that all of a sudden Leivik says to me, "Good Shabbos, and Morgan in the free. Tomorrow morning we're going to send 3 small kids, and they are going to play around like and hide no seek, and they're going to come to your hotel, and you're going to see them outside, and they're going to have small kasketzel, which means small hats, like taxi driver hats, and they will show you the way to show." I said to Leivik, "Don't you ever send any kids to pick me up Don't do that. I know the way to show. I figured it out. And he says, but still, how are you going to do it? How are you going to? I says, it's simple. I am going to follow the tramway. He says, you're right. And the tramway turned and turned in many different ways, but I happened to use that as my guide, and it worked very well going home the rest of the way, and it also worked very well for Shabbos morning. Shabbos morning, it was Shabbos Mavorachim. I came early to shul, and I came through the method that I said, through the tramvai. I came into the chutzner, and I saw faces that I never saw there before. I saw many, many Hasidim over there that I never saw before. I said to Hillel, and each one of them took me as a partner to stand around him and to be his to act like an ear. And this one said to me, my name is Zalman Bavava. I am a relative of Reb Shalom Poisner von Pittsburgh, and ich will haben a visa. And then came a different man, and he told me his story. Everybody had a chance to go up and to tell me, my name is Shmuel Gitlis. Ich habe zwei Kinder. Sie sind in Aris gegangen. Ein Kind ist in Philadelphia. Ist a Reiter. Und can machen a visa from mir. Then another Yid came to me. Unbelievable. Everybody had a chance to sit next to me and to whisper something in my ear. And everybody was saying Tillim Shabbos Mavarchim. The man that made the biggest impression on me at that time in the show was Reb Zalman Bavava Zalman Pesner. He was the Rav of the group, and he cried the most, and he asked me the most questions. Where is the Zenin from the Rabbonim from the Rebbe? As soon as I said the magic name, Reb Zalman Shimon Dvorkin, that was it. He was so happy. Anyway, it did not take too long, and the Shabbos davening was over with. I went to my hotel by myself, and on the way, I met hundreds of Jungelite and Bochrim, and they would pass me. Everybody would look me in the eyes, and everybody would yell out the exact same thing to me. They're in the personal names, and then a warning. Klovim game der noch. Klovim, Klovim. Hit sich up, Klovim. Dogs are following you. People who are working from the government. They are not kids who are playing ball. They are after you. Watch yourself. Be careful, and may God be with you. And that's what happened to me as I walked from shul back to my hotel. I waited there in my hotel to after Shabbos, and I was told to bring the mamorim that I had from the Rebbe, from Tovshin Yudalid and Tovshin Tesvav. All the mamorim that I had on onion paper should go for Tashkent, and I was told by a man called Rabbi Aaron Zabrowski that I should come into the shul and I should put it into a coat. There'll only be one jacket there, and when I put it in, the people will be sitting still by Shabbos Shuddis. No one will be davening Ma'ariv. I should bang the door 3 times when I leave, and that is how the Hasidus should come in. And I did exactly that. I waited after Ma'ariv, I made Havdalah, and after Havdalah, I decided that I am going to look outside through my window to see who is at the entrance of my hotel. When I came to the looking outside, I noticed that there was a man and a woman standing there. They looked very beautiful, very nice, and they were well dressed. And I heard beforehand that there would be tomorrow on Sunday a wedding, and I figured out that this must be either the chassan, this must be a family of the kala, and there's more people to come, and that is why these people are here. Now really, I was not planning to pass them, but being that I saw and I studied their faces, I came to the idea that I will go downstairs, I will pass in their direction, and if I happen to hear a word from them, the word might be something in Hasidus lingo, it might be in Hebrew, it might be in Yiddish. If I pick up a clue from them, I will turn and listen to what their directions will be. And that's exactly what happened. I left the hotel, I passed them, and I heard everything that I was waiting to hear. I heard 2 words, Yemina, v'achar kach smola, which in plain English meant to me, go right behind the building of the hotel, and then use the back steps of the hotel and the sidewalks to walk, and that is smola, because that is a quiet place, no lights, no nothing, and that is where they're going to meet me, in the dark of the night. And being that it was after Shabbos, I took the Chassidus with me. I went downstairs. I heard everything, as I told you before. And I was walking with them, and in the dark, they introduced me, and he said that his name is called Yankel de Schwarze, and she said that this is his wife, and that she happens to be a sister of a man called Chatzko. I said I happen to know him very much, and not only do I know him, I also know of his father. I met him before, and his name is Binyomin Brod. She was very happy, and I said that Binyomin Brod now is in Eretz Yisrael, and I said, yes, I know, I remember seeing him and hearing about him, and they walked with me, and they told me a story of their life, the bitter, bitter story. And the lady began to talk, and she tells me the following. She told me that her husband, Yankel, happens to be a man who only wanted to keep Shabbos. And in order to keep Shabbos, he went into the business working in the cleaning store. But to hold in dismay, the chemicals that were used to clean the garments were very, very bad for his health. And they happened to poison his lungs, his liver, and everything else. And he went to a doctor, and the doctor said, no way is he going to make it. He's finished. Get that burial place ready for him. It's the lady, when she heard it, his wife, when she heard these terrible words coming from the doctor, she could not live anymore. And she immediately sent telegrams to 770 Eastern Parkway. What did she want? The Rabbi should pray for her husband, Rabbi Yankiv. That's all she wanted. She doesn't care if she sits in Siberia. She doesn't care what's going to happen. She wants the Rebbe should know about it. And she sent telegram after telegram. She borrowed money like a crazy person, right and left, wherever she could pick up a kopke, and wherever she could pick up a ruble. It was going for one purpose. It was not for food. It was to send the telegram to the Rebbe. The Rebbe got these telegrams, and he sent back one telegram. All the telegram said was, Salucha, I heard, and that's all she needed. She was so happy. Now she says, you see, my husband, he is very healthy. Baruch Hashem, he made it. Baruch Hashem, he's alive. I have, and with me, 1,000 American dollars that I picked up and I worked for so hard in the black market. I want you to take this $1,000 and I want you to bring it back to the Rebbe and mention that this is from our family, my husband. Thanks to the Rebbe's prayers. I said to her, not in a million years will I be able to do this here. And never will I be able to take money from a Russian Jew and to bring it to the Rebbe. Never, never such a thing. She says, well, what then? I said, we are talking about rubles. And we're talking about from the whole community of Tashkent. And we're talking about maybe 18 rubles chai. And she said, why so little? And I said, this is the way I want it. I cannot face the Rebbe in America bringing back $1,000 from a Russian Jew. She said, all right, have it your way. Anyway, she said, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're coming closer to the show. So you are bringing Chassidus to the show. So I was told there was a change of plan. You are to take the Chassidus and not to bring it into the show as planned by Aaron Zabravsky, the Sefer. You are to take Chassidus and put it down on the bench closest to the show, on the outside in the dark of the night. And then you are not to go to the right to the show, but you're to go to the left. And on the left or behind the tree, there'll be a man over there, and his name would be called Eliezer Nanas. And he's waiting and dying to meet with you, and you have to meet Eliezer Nanas. No way should you go to the direction of the show as was told to you before. Besides the point, I want my husband now to go to the house. He is going to pick up 18 ruble, and as you said, not to ask for us a Yeshua, but for all the Jews of Anash, of Tashkent. So we're going to take a bottle of vodka, and on the back of the bottle, on the paper, we're going to write down all the Hebrew names and the mother's names that all these people are from the Anash, and they all need a Yeshua. And that is the bottle that will go to the Rebbe. There'll be no last names, only the first names and the mother's names, and that is it. So I waited with the wife, and she was telling me about the tsaras that she has from her children. They go to public school, and are we allowed to tell them that they're Jews, and are we allowed to allow them to go Shabbos, and all the problems that she encounters every single week with her two children. And that is what she told me. And she begged me, being that I'm a Kohen and a bracha and a shliach of the Rebbe, I should give her a bracha, her husband's gesund, and for the kids, and so on. And before you knew it, in a short period of time, her husband came back with the 18 ruble and with a small bottle of vodka with everyone's name. I put it in my pocket, and I took the chassidus. They departed from me. I took the chassidus, walked up to the last bench. Instead of going right, I left it in the dark of the night. What happened to it? I imagine somebody was waiting later to snatch it up. Instead of going to the right to the shul, I went to the left, and I met over there the man, a laser nanas. He looked so thin, so broken, so busted, so lost, so yush. My heart was bleeding looking at him. And he said to me a very simple thing. And a distance, it was the dark of the night, and he said to me, hast du gehört von der Leser Nanes? Du weißt wegen Nanes? Hast du einmal gelernt wegen Nanes in Gemara? Du hast einmal gehört a Yid, was heißt Bananas? And I was talking to him, yes, ich gedenk a Yid in Gemara bananas. And as we were talking about bananas in the Gemara and Baba Basra, the Mishnah over there about bananas, he says, geh mir noch, follow me. I says, ich tornish, too close. I told him, you go and I have sick, leave I have sick 3 meter. Then I'll go 3 meter after me, your wife. And he liked the idea. He went up. We were going up a mountain. It looked like Montreal at night. It looked like a Mount Royal. And I knew about that mountain. And it so happens there was a similar mountain over here. We went up in the dark of the night, and there seemed to be no one around. It was very late. And he said to me the following: I will put my head next to yours. Your feet will be one direction. My feet will be in the other direction. If anybody ever comes towards us and we have time, you roll to the right, I roll to the left. I am never allowed to be with a foreigner, especially a fellow like you. Anyway, we sat down on the grass and we spoke, and he told me his name. I told him the password, what I remember hearing from Simcha Gordetsky about what his name is and how he has to fill out the papers and so on. And it so happens he was very happy. Then he tells me he has a brother-in-law in Montreal. I told him, yes, I know your brother-in-law. I come from Montreal. His name is called Ramosha Newmark. Yes, he said. And I told him the name of the daughters. And I said to him their names. And I said about Necha, and she's married to a fine young man whose name was Reb Tzvi Hirsch. Reuben, Moshe Reuben's a brother. And he says, yes, he picked that all up in the letters and who their children are and their grandchildren are. And it worked very well. He was so happy. He said to me, I want to come to visit you tomorrow in your hotel. I says, Chas v'shalom, Chas v'shalom, Chas v'shalom, Chas v'shalom, you should come. I want to bring, no, Chas v'shalom, don't you ever come. I'll send my wife, no, Chas v'shalom, don't send her. And every time I yelled Chas v'shalom, I saw more tears coming out. Didn't take too long. I felt somebody picking me up, laying down there in the grass, and they picked me up with heavy hands, a right hand, the left hand. I didn't know who these people were, and I don't know how they came up so close to us, and we never even got wind of it. But maybe after all those chas v'shaloms that I shook him off, that I didn't recognize what was happening. But there were 2 people who picked me up. I was shaking like a lulav, and one fellow said to me, I remember that voice very well. I was very, very close to such a voice. That sounded to me like Lebo Mochkin, Peretz Mochkin, and Bero Mochkin. Must be a Mochkin. And I yelled out to him, Mochkin, and he yelled out to me, from one it weißt du, how in the heck do you know my name is Mochkin? And I says, ich komme von Montreal, ich kenne dein Tate Rabbi Peretz, ich kenne doch dein Bruder, ich kenne doch Bero. And he's yelling at me and shaking like a lulav. I'm not shaking anymore. And on the other side, there is a young man, strong as they come, Michal Vyshetsky. He is holding me on the other hand, and before I know it, he's asking me a very simple question. Hast du gehört wegen Shalom Ber Vyshetsky, mein Bruder? I says, yeah. 3 questions he had. Is there a Chassidische Yid? Yeah. Molostem Arain bei den Rebben zu Herren Chassidus? Yeah. Hat an Nomen als Chassid? Yeah. And that's what he wanted to know. Now I went to the Muchkin, we went through all the family ties and questions, and now I asked him a question. Mizot in Montreal, they say in Montreal that you are blind, you don't see anything, and you're laying in prison. I have a question to ask you. I see that you're not blind. I see you are not in prison. How do I understand what people say in Montreal about you? At the Fabrinischen, your father, a parrot, sits there. He sits and cries, his eyes out. And everybody around him, they all cry for the 2 brothers who are sitting in prison. And this is a big problem. I don't begin to understand how you're blind. I see, Baruch Hashem, you are walking around just like I am in the dark of the night. I don't see you with a blind man's stick. And they told me and explained to me everything, how they became blind and how they pretend to be blind and why. And what all the details are about it. And they told me they were in prison for many years. They were caught and punished because they had a brother called Lebo, and he made all different types of passports that were false for all the Lubavitcher people to leave. He saved thousands of Jewish families, but somebody had to pay the penalty, and they sat in prison for it. I think they told me close to 20 years. They got so tired and so beaten up in prison, and they beat the heck out of everybody else in prison, and there were gangs in the prison, one side beating the other side, and all night long a person would think and plan how to beat up the other group of people. And they were, Baruch Hashem, very strong. They were the winners of the fight. But every night and every morning there were more prisoners and more fights. And that day you had to work. And they had to figure out a way how to get out of this misery. And they remember when they were kids in the days that they did not want to learn Torah. They had a gimmick. They would tell the Melamed after 1 hour of learning that they have a Bauchweitig. They have a stomach ache. And it worked. Now they said to the prisoner guards that they're blind. They don't see anything. They were given tests all over the place, and they played the game of the blind beggar. And it worked. It worked. They got the stick. They made off they were blind until they saw me. And they watched me for a whole week. And they knew for sure that I was being planned by the government. But after a week, somebody came over to me and ripped at my beard, so it wasn't a fake beard. And somebody happened to check me davening by heart. And they got the okay from Levi Pressman from Shaw that this is a real thing. It's the end of their gullus. This is the end of all the ends. And the misery, and somebody outside is thinking about them. And the name of the person is called the Rabbi. And he sits and cries openly before all the Eden. And he wants that heaven should work out a plan that the Eden should go out. And this was very important to them. Then they told me private things of their own personal lives, how really they could get married tomorrow, even their older bochrim, but they have young ladies who are Jewish, Chassidische Techter, they get married, but they are refusing to do it because Russia has a rule, anybody who gets married, they're not attached anymore to their parents, and they'll never be able to go out anymore because they're considered complete family with their new married bride, and therefore they want to remain old bochrim until their father will be able to take them out. And they believe they have a filthy name filled up in all the police books of all their sins and how many people hurt them and beat them and how many people they beat up. No way will they be able to leave Tashkent. Maybe they'll have a chance of leaving Russia through Leningrad. And therefore, they made up with me many different things about how they want to receive a letter from their father who spoke it over with the Rebbe, how they are going to go out. What city should they make their papers from? Should it be Leningrad? Should it be Tashkent? Should it be Kharkov? What city would the Rebbe find easier for them, with God's help, that they should be able to leave? I heard everything that they said, and they spoke to me in length about many detailed things. You would never believe it. I spent 2 or 3 hours with them, and they said to me they are able to hear a man teaching Chassidus every Saturday night. His name, I think they told me, was Rabbi Goldschmidt, and he has a mouth made of gold, and they enjoy every bit. And it's about time that the Kol Yisrael, I believe that was the name of the station, they should stop these women and girls singing Svardische Nigunim. Who needs them? And we want to hear more Chassidus, and we want to hear more Gemara, and we want more Chumash and Rashi, and we want more Sichos from the Rebbe, and we hear it with our radio shortwave, and it's less than 1,000 miles from the position where they are to Tel Aviv, and therefore they begged me I should speak to the to the Israeli government to knock out all this nonsense and to put in Torah's emes into the radio station that goes for the people who hear like they do on their shortwaves. I heard what they said. Before you know it, everything turned into a nightmare. Everything was so good, and they were remarking they don't believe it, that such a wonderful night that they're having, and it's like Pesach, the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim, how we verbring so well, and I sang over Nigunim from the Rebbe to them, and they were singing it back to me. It was unbelievable, and all of a sudden, the whole climate changes. A goy was following us, and from the dark in the night, he went over to them and yelled out to them one word, Spitchke, which meant he wanted a match for his cigarette, for his paparossen. They turned to me and they said, turn your head the other way. Turn it, don't look what we're going to do. I said, what's going on? He says, this fellow who's asking, they said in Yiddish, fragt for a Spitchke. He doesn't mean a match. He is going to take you, Binyomin Katz, you, me, him. We're all going to sit tonight in prison. We're all going to die in prison. Don't you understand? I says, no, I don't understand. He says, Spitchka means a match. But Spitchka also means like a flashlight. When the light of the match will light up our faces, we're at lineup tonight. And he'll point us that we are the people who spoke with a foreigner for 2-3 hours. And you are in trouble, but you'll probably get away. But we are going to sit in a dungeon for the rest of our lives. Oh, I said, I got it. Now, I said, why do I have to turn around? Why don't you go up and tell the man, very simple, there is no spitchka, you don't smoke. And then he won't have a flashlight to put our faces. Then we'll all go different directions. And Shalom Yisrael. They said, yes, you're right. And so what were they planning to do? There is simple planning to pick up a sewer cover and dump the man inside, because this man wants to kill them. So they'll do away with him for a few hours. He'll be crying over there. There's nobody around. And that's the way they'll get rid of him, because he is called Al Pi Aloche Al Rodef. He is chasing them to kill them, so they're allowed to go up and to put him down in the sewer. Whatever happens, that's his business. Anyway, they liked my idea. That's exactly what happened. And I went my way. I went to the hotel. They went their way. And I prayed to God that everything would be good, because there was no spitchka. There was no flashlight, which means no identity of who was talking. There was no one could see our faces in the dark of the night. Anyway, the next morning I came to show and I see Zalman Istulin. Zalman Istulin was a great man, a great scholar in Torah, and he knew I was coming from the different type of mail that came on postcards about the camouflaged in different ways about a Rabbi Shliach coming down the coast and so on. And he wanted to see me, and other people, other Chassidim were there, Zalman Istulin's son, the Shliach in Los Angeles, and the other people were there. And what could I tell you? A very, very simple thing. The Mishalovins were there, this one was there, and what could I tell you? Before I walked into shul, a man came over to me, took his finger and he pointed it right in my face, and he said, "Sollst musst du wissen. You should know very well. Last night they killed Jews, and they killed Jews because of you. You were the one that made sure Jews should die last night. I felt so bad. I was so broken. I was about to, I didn't know what to do. I was thinking in my mind, I better go back to my tel. I better go up and pick up my luggage, and I better run out of this place. I'm doing more harm for Jews than good. I felt completely broken. But behind this man who was yelling, whose name was Elusha, the electrician, as I gathered, somebody was behind him and making all different types of indications to me. Number one, they were showing that the man is not to be trusted. The man was crazy, and I should not worry what he says, and should not think of what he says. No one was killed, no one was happened, it's all right. All I should do is go into shul, because they have 9 people and they need a 10th one right now, and I should go up to the Viber shul and the Bukhara shul in the Chotzer in the yard, and we are going to be united inside with 10 people, and I should they're going to daven for the Omid, 9 people downstairs, 1 person upstairs. I will be in the women's gallery and I'll be able to see them. We'll have contact, and after Baruch Hu, Zalman Stulin motioned to me I should come down, that the fear is over with. I came down. And what could I tell you? I went down and we finished our davening. After davening, Zalman Stulin motioned to me I should go into a different building, a different part of a different show in the Chotzer. I went there and he said to me, Zing Negunim. Teach us the Rebbe's Negunim from Simchas Torah. I began, and I looked at behind the crowd. There was Levi Pressman. I sang the Negunim, and he sang them back. And he picked up the Negunim very well. And I sang the Negunim, and I was sweating, and the crowd became bigger and bigger and bigger. And 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, and all of a sudden I received a Tillim, and inside, written in Hebrew, Klovim, that there was a bunch of dogs, which meant there are a bunch of people who are looking to spy out on you, and you have to quit right now, and this is the end of all the singing, and do something funny that everyone should laugh. Maybe some people will think that you're drunk, and get out of this place over here. Exactly what I did. I listened to the orders, and I understood, and little by little I started to go up and act like I was maybe a little bit drunk. Tired I was, for sure. I was sweating terribly, being cooked up in that show. We started off with 10 people, now there were closer to 60 or 70 people in the show. But Levi Pressman, he kept me up. He sang back, I sang forwards, I sang a new niggin. Masai kohosimar ksheyefutsu manisecha. And they took to all the Negunim, every niggin that I remember that the Rebbe taught us. Simchas Torah, I taught them many, many Negunim, and that was the end of my meeting with Chassidim. As I came from Mincha later on, and I came to myself, after Mincha, Rabbi Zabrovsky grabbed me by my hand, and he said to me, du musst kommen verbringen mit mir. I says, chas v'shalom. He says, du musst kommen mit mir. I says, chas v'shalom. Was chas v'shalom? I says, du weißt, was man getan zu der Rav, wenn Rav Hollander, die übrige Rabbonim da gewesen. Du weißt, was man getan zu der Rav, wie hat man genommen die Rav und mit dem Azefo gehargert und man gemacht, pausiert. Du weißt, als wir tarnisch reingehen in eine jüdische Stube, du weißt, als ich tarnisch reingehen, you know I'm not allowed to enter a Jewish house. You know what happened to Shmaya the Rav. You know, why are you forcing me to do things that are wrong? He says, I want to tell you something, says Rabbi Zabrovsky. The second that you leave Tashkent, we are all going to be called down to the police station. Get this straight in your head. We are going to sit and rot in jail for a longer period of time. Not 10 years, but 10 to 30 days, or maybe more. Maybe a half a year, until we talk. Listen what I'm going to tell you. Why should we sit for no reason? Let us sit for a reason. Teach us a sikha. Teach us a niggin of the Rebbe, please. Why should we sit for no reason? I said, I'm not allowed to go into a Jewish home. I told you. He said, what is the case if I take you and beat you up? I take your hand and I force you to go. what will the law be then? Are you allowed to? Oh, I says, if you beat me and you force me to go and you get me in a headlock, well, that's your business. That I could go. He says, all right, I'm going to beat you up right now. I'm taking you into a headlock and you're coming with me. And it was the dark of night and he dragged me someplace. And a little later I found out that it was a family called Kohn, a Sephardic Yidden, and they were all fine Yidden. I couldn't believe it. They all took out their tanyas, all of them. They looked like there were 18 or 20 people, and each one of them gave me their name, and each one happened to talk to me about a relative, and they all had the exact same idea. We need a visa to get out of this prison. I heard what they said. I repeated their names, and they spoke to me if I know their relative by the Rabbi. And they said to me, there is a man, Niyazov, and he is by the Rebbe, and he is from their family. Do I know a Yid called Niyazov? I says, I remember that there is a Yid that comes from a section of Brooklyn, I told them, from a place called Borough Park, and he looks like his name is Niyazov, like, because you people have a similar face and eyebrows and eye recognition and characteristics, and I remember such a person. So have him remember us. And they gave me their names, and I repeated all their names before them. They were very, very happy. All of a sudden, from nowhere, there was a very big noise. Everybody came in with fright, and what happened? There was a man who happened to be a butcher. I think his name is Rabbi Stambler, and he was listening in the room with all the Svardim from the Yaza family, and he heard me look at everyone and repeat to them their names, and he studied everything going on. This man went out of his wit, and he got on, and he drank a little bit too much, I guess, and he got on the floor, and he was saying a prayer for me, that God should help me, that I should be able to get back to the Rebbe. And he was crying and yelling on top of his voice. All the neighbors around, it was like close to 12 o'clock, they were opened their lights to see what all the yelling was about in this Jewish Sephardic home. The Cohns, I guess. And what could I tell you? A very terrible thing happened, that his voice got louder and louder, and all he said was, God, I beg you, save this man, please save him. He should be able to go back to the Rebbe, and he should not have to sit in prison and not be caught. And over again he cried and he yelled, and his name, if I recall, was Rabbi Stambler. All of a sudden, a man came over to me. His name was called, I think, Reb Shmuel Gitlis, and he whispered in my ear. And he said to me the following: there's only one way that you could get him quiet. I have the remedy, but we all have to walk out of the room. You go over to him and whisper in his ear that you have Ruach HaKodesh, and that you have special things that you know about him that no living person knows about. All the secrets of his secret life. And you bend down and tell him in his ear that you are a Navi, and that you know about this. And I did exactly as I was told. I bent down and I piped into his ear that I have Ruach HaKodesh, I am also a Navi, and whatever they told me to say, I piped into his ear. What would you believe? The man died on the spot. A man stopped yelling, he turned white, and it looked like I did a terrible job on him. I immediately said to them, they must give him water. It looks very bad. They threw water at him. He got up from his faint, and that seemed to, right now, that I should leave because it's 12 o'clock and I have to be in the hotel around before 12 o'clock. As I was about to leave, they told me they have a taxi ready for me. One of their people from the Sephardim, from the Yazov family, is going to take me to the hotel, but they want me to see and visit a group of boys young boys who are in a room waiting for me, and I only have to be there for 1 second. Give them a birchas kohanim that they should be able to meet up with you one day by the Rabbi, and they should be gesund, because very soon they were drafted, they have to go to war, and that you should give them a bracha right now, and that's all the bracha has to be. And I went into the room and I did exactly as I was told. I went and I blessed them that we should all be together and see each other alive by the Rebbe. They were very happy, and I was taken away by a taxi to my hotel. I made it before the times that they would close the doors. And as far as I recall, that was the last gathering of Farbrengen that I had in Tashkent with the Anash. So with me I was taking a bottle of vodka that had everybody's name, and from with that bottle, which I always helped next to me, I went to Odessa, I went to Lvov, and I visited every single city. I would go always to the synagogue to meet the Jews, and in one city there was a Farbrengen, and at the end of the Farbrengen, a man came over, Farbrengen of Hanukkah or of something else, and the man would talk publicly, and everybody would walk out of shul after the talk. I lingered on, and he came over to me, he looked at me, and he told me these magic words. You should know, there's nobody in shul right now except me and you. You see that bookcase, you see the second shelf? I want you to right now to turn around, take every single book out of that shelf. I want you to put it in your pocket, into your pants, into your jacket, in every place that you could. I want you to take every one of those Sfarim out, because in this city and this land that we're in, nothing will be from it. They are expensive Sfarim, and I want you to leave with them right now. And the taxi is waiting for you. Our taxi is waiting for you. I looked at the man. I saw he meant it. And to tell me to take a sefer, you don't have to say that twice. I walked over to the bookcase. I looked at the Sfarim. I put them all in my pockets. I stuffed them in. I ripped off some of the covers of the bigger ones, and I grabbed them all. I emptied the shelf as he told me. I went into the hotel later, and after they brought me there, I went upstairs to my room. I was dying to find out what are these Sfarim that I took. And lo and behold, who would believe it? The first print of Tanya, the first print of Derech Mitzvah, the first print of Torah Or. And I had it all in my hand. I couldn't believe it. But now I had a problem. How am I going to take this out of Russia? And in my passport, they happened to add a paper. I came in with 4 books. And Ivrai Kniga Ivrai. 4 Jewish books I came in with. Now I'm coming out with 40. How do I do that? Well, I was working in the hotel, how to figure out a plan, and this was my plan. Number 1, next to the 4, put a 0. So now I have 40, it fits in the number very well. Now I have another thing, how am I going to get them out? Very simple. I came into Russia with 2 big suitcases, one of them of clothing, the other one of food. As I'm traveling, the food is getting less and less and less. I have very little food left. I will take these Sfarim and put them all into the suitcase of the food. And that is the way I will get it out. I looked over every single sefer and in the Tanya and all over, and I saw markings belonging it belongs to the synagogue, and no one's allowed to confiscate it, and no one's allowed to take it out. Only everything belongs to the Russian government. And I ripped everything out, and I was praying for the best. I wrote my name all over the place, and I hope that everything would be good. There wasn't any residue and leftover that this had anything to do with a shul sefer. And when it actually came time for me to leave Russia, the Rebbe's bracha that he gave me, bracha, batzlacha, ratzu, v'shuv, going and coming, the bracha worked out very well, as I will tell very soon. From the city of Odessa, I went to Lvov, gathered the names of Amcho Yisrael, and later they were used making passports and visas in Israel. And then I went to Riga. Then I went to the city Moscow again. And then I went to Leningrad. In Leningrad, among the places where they showed me naturally was Petropolska, which is the island where the Alter Rebbe was in prison over there. And I went to shul every day, and I met on Shabbos a man who was making all types of symbols before me. And I think his name was called Reb Sadia, and his last name may be Butman. And in davening, he was making off like he was holding wooden crutches, and he was making up and down, doing all different types of indications, and looking at me from a distance, eye contact. And every time he had eye contact with me, I saw him making motions as if he was wearing a pair of crutches. Now, I know his brother, and I knew that he had relatives over here, Reb Zalman Butman, and I also knew that he has a brother over here called Reb Sadia. I knew about that information before, and so therefore, I happened to have eye contact, and I shook my head, showing that I know exactly what he means. Didn't take too long. Right after davening, I walked into a hallway of the shul, which is called the Chabadske Shtibo, and right over there, I happened to meet up with him. All he wanted to know is, how is his brother Zalman, and also he has some money for the Rebbe and for a pidyon. No way was I going to take any money. I told him I know his brothers, and the key word, one word was visa, and that was it. And that was the end of our short meeting. The shul in Leningrad was such a beautiful shul. The city was such a beautiful city, but I didn't come not to see the shul, not to go to see the city. I had a job, and the job was ticking out, and another few days I would be back in Copenhagen. And exactly what happened. I happened to be there, and Moitzoi Shabbos, I heard somebody say to me, Abdullah, looking the other way, and I was looking at the ceiling, he was looking at the floor, and he was holding a tillam, I was holding a sitter. Was macht Reb Avram? How does Avram feel? I had no idea who this man was talking about. 45 people whose name Avram came to my mind. Then he asked again, Was macht Avram? And I had no idea what the man is talking about. And he did it again, the third time, the fourth time. Finally, I took enough courage and looking the other way, Welche Avram, Redman? Which Avram are you referring to? And finally, the word came out, Avram Zippel. Avram Zippel was a chassid of the Rebbe who happened to be living in Italy. He happened to be a furrier, and they used to have very big, beautiful furs that were sold in Leningrad to all the outside world, and the people came in with a lot of money to buy these furs. And so therefore, Avram Zippel also did a lot of work for the Rebbe. He happened to bring out from Russia all the his father, the Rebbe's father's ksovim, that Rabbi Levi Yitzchak ksovim, that the mother happened to write with herbs, the different notes that on the margin of the paper. So all these books were all brought out by Avram. At the last time they caught him, they put him into prison. And being that he was an honorable person, the prison was very short, I think maybe 3 or 4 months compared to 4 years in Siberia, and that they finally let him out. These people did not know too much if he was still in or out, and what they were referring to was Avram Zippel out or in or whatever. I thought they were talking about Avram Mayor, and I started talking about Avram Mayor, and Avram Driesen, and they were telling me, no, they mean Avram Zippel. And I filled them in what I knew about Avram Zippel. Anyway, it did not take too long, and they also begged me to take out certain Sfarim that have nothing to do with the Rebbe, but they felt that these Sfarim are decaying here, no one is going to learn them, the older generation are going to die, and that is it. So a man called Chideko was there, and he taught Chassidus to the people, and they all begged me to take these very old Sfarim out, which I did. I always had a problem now of leaving Russia. How was I going to leave with a suitcase filled with Sfarim? Well, it says 40 Sfarim he brought in, 40 Sfarim he's bringing out. Well, it sounded very good in theory, but in reality, I saw that this would not be the case, because when I had to leave Russia, there was some terrible things that happened, that there was a long line, and they were investigating and looking at everybody's garments, and they were looking in the inner parts of the garments, and if their garment was filled with a certain type of a cloth, they ripped it apart and wanted to know what else was hidden in that garment. And this is the way I saw how they were looking over all the people were leaving Russia, and I knew that I'm going to have a heck of a time getting out 40 Svarim. So I had my trick. My trick was a very simple trick. Always be at the end of the line. Play for time because the plane has to leave at 5 o'clock, and now it is 4:30. So you have half an hour, and you play with the watch. And so therefore more people came, and therefore I gave them my place in line. Before I looked at I see the watch. Now it is now 4:45. There is a lady who happened to be watching me, always going to the end of the line, and she asked me, "Why do you do this? Why are you always at the end of the line? What are you doing over here?" She spoke in English, and I heard everything she said, and I said to her, "I have a stomachache, and I feel I have to go to the men's room, and therefore I don't want to push the people out of my way. It's not polite." I yelled, and I want to be at the end of the line because I ate something and it's really eating me up right now, and I can't take the pain that I'm going through. "Oh," she says, "we could give you some medicine." No, I don't want that medicine. I'll take medicine when I'm in the free world. I'm not used to your medicine. I don't have a stomach like you people do. I'm not used to your foods. I'm sick. I don't feel good. I always have to go to the men's room. I need to throw up. I have all types of sicknesses. "Oh," she says, "oh, it's very interesting." "Oh, yeah, I said, interesting. It hurts." Then I went to the bathroom. Before I knew it, that she moved my luggage around. I asked her, "Why did you touch my luggage?" She says, "I want to look over your luggage when the time comes. I want to be the person who checks everything out to make sure everything is proper, because I know the faster I do it, the better it will be for you." I was caught. But before you knew it, something happened in the airport. There was a break of a fire. Everybody who was somebody over there, everybody ran to put out the fire. Didn't take too long. It was now 2 minutes before the time. And they announced, "We are now boarding. We are now boarding. Number pum 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 pum. We are now boarding to Finland. Everybody who's going, kindly board now." Picked up the 2 suitcases like nothing happened, walked up to the plane, sat down, they closed the door, and I was so happy. I had all this far up. Nobody looked at everything. I remembered at that moment, the Rabbi gave me a bracha. The bracha will be when you come in and when you go out. Your boachem, your tzeichem from Russia, everything should be with a bracha. Ratzu v'shuv was the Rebbe's lashon. And there it was, hatzlacha bracha ratzu v'shuv. And that's the way it was. When I came to Helsinki, I stood over at night in a hotel, and from there I took a plane to Copenhagen. I met Rabbi Chaikin at the airport with Rabbi Ozdaba, and he told me, "Now your job begins. Now your job, second part begins. Now your job is that you are to sit and to write to the Rebbe every single thing that happened to you, every single day, whatever you remember, everybody's name, everything that happened, even what you considered to be something foolish and trivial, you should write down to the Rebbe. And I am going to ask you to follow me and to come with every single simcha. There's going to be a bris this week. There's going to be a wedding this week. There's going to be an engagement party. You're going to be my visitor, and you are going to be our Urich HaKoved. You're going to sit next to me, and you're going to write away and write, and I'm going to give you pencil until you get tired. Write clearly, and every single day I'm going to take your letters and I'm going to send them special delivery to the Rebbe. And that's the way it was. I used to go to every single simcha among the Jews who lived in Machzikei Hadas, who Rabbi Chaikin was their instructor, and he was their role model, and he was their Rav. And I used to write to the Rebbe exactly what he told me to do. I wrote everything that came to my mind. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of pages, and he would send them away. And then came a letter from Rabbi Chadakov. The first half of your shlichus is finished. Now there is a second part. So I wrote to the Rebbe a letter, and I got an answer from Rabbi Chadakov. I asked the Rebbe, I finished my shlichus in Russia, and I would like to know one of 2 things. Should I visit my father in Eretz Yisrael, in Bnei Brak? Should I go back to the Rebbe in Crown Heights? Or should I stay on here for more shlichus from Rabbi Chaikin? And the Rebbe's answer is, you should immediately go to your father and visit him in Bnei Brak, and over there you're going to go through a second part of the shlichus, which will be a very different than here. And as the Rebbe instructed me, so did I do. I went to Kirshenbaum for Shabbos Haggadah of Pesach. I came to Bnei Brak where my father lived, and I found out that my grandfather, Reb Shneir Zalman, passed away on Shabbos, and on Sunday morning was his levaya, and I met for Shiva. Soon as I woke up the next morning, my neighbor next door, Rabbi Shmuel Halevi Vosner, was there, and he told me, your grandfather was a very great man. Little do you know that he had a boyfriend who loved him very much and used to take daily walks with him. They both needed it, and there was no one else except but the Chazon Ish. And he used to walk with him for fresh air, and your grandfather was his chavrusa, who used to walk with him. And you don't know who your grandfather is. He was a man who had tremendous mesiras nefesh, and he was a man who knew Gemara by heart with the Loshem, and he was a man who was a Uiveit Hashem, and was always waiting, and he heard that you were coming, and you were going to visit him, but God did not want. He passed away the day you came, and so therefore you did not make it. But I will tell you that now is Erev Pesach, and I want you and your father to be together with me for Pesach. I said, Reb Shmuel, I cannot be by you for many reasons. I have to go to Kfar Chabad. I have to meet up with a man called Reb Simcha Gordetsky, and without him I have no reason to be in Eretz Yisrael. I have a lot of work to do here. I don't see myself here. Besides the point, we in Chabad make our own Siddharim. We have our own Kaira. We make our own Seder plate. You're sitting with many people on Pesach at the Seder with 60, 70, 80 family guests, Talmidim, and so on. I'm going to go up and sit next to you. I'm going to go up and make my own Kaira, run my own Seder, and it will look terrible. I'll be beaten up by all your students, right and left. No way will I be able to do this. How am I going to do this? Put you ashamed. You're going to make Kiddush. I'm going to make Kiddush loud. What's going on over here? How could I do it? How disrespectful could I be to you? And why are you doing this to me? He says, you have a big mistake. Nobody is going to lift up their hand to you. You're going to sit right next to me, and no one is going to say anything to you. And you are going to have your Chabad Seder right next to me. If anybody lifts an eyebrow, they'll be in trouble. No one is going to touch you. You are to sit next to me. I am going to let you do all minhagi Chabad, and your father is going to sit there, and you are not to go to Kfar Chabad. Kfar Chabad is not running away. You'll be able to see Simcha Gordetsky. He's going to be there. I want you for my guest. I told him, I feel we're doing the wrong thing. I believe we're doing the wrong thing, but I'm not going to fight with you. I feel I'm doing the wrong thing. He says, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you the truth. You know, I am the Rav of a part of Bnei Brak called Zichron Meir. I have questions that are asked from me, from all Bnei HaYeshiva come to me, because Ponovich, Slabotke, they all are here, and they all come to me because I am the Rav that was placed there by the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe told me many years back that I should go to Bnei Brak. I respect Rabbi Yankov Lamdo. He is the chief rabbi, and I am his friend, and no harm will ever come to you if you sit next to me, and I'll tell you what your job is. I am a man. When I sit down with my mishpacha and with my talmidim, 60, 70, 80 people at the Seder in our house, I will tell you, I only could do one thing. I only could fall asleep. I cannot do anything more at the Seder. And so therefore, I will tell you a very simple thing. I want you to sit next to me because I notice that you are a person that you have no fear whatsoever from anyone. And I want you to sit next to me, and as soon as you see that I fall into a faint sleep, I want you to give me a knip on my foot. I said, that's all I need. They'll beat me up. They'll make chop suey out of me. Your students will see me hitting you, tapping you. No way will I live it through. No, he says, sing a Chabadske niggin. Sing one of your Nigunim. I hear you and your father, you verbring the Shabbos that you came through the window. Me and my students were all listening to the beautiful Nigunim, your voice. I want you to sing me a beautiful Nigun like you sing for your father. Remember, I'm your next door neighbor. I said, Rabbi Vosner, Can't you get anybody else to sing for you? Please let me go to Kfar Chabad. Why do I have to sing? He says, everybody's afraid of me. You're the only fellow who has guts here, so therefore I picked you. Anyway, I saw no way out. I saw many things happening here, so I decided I cannot do what I want. It was Erev Pesach. My father told me to kasher the kalim of the house, and therefore I went into our neighbor, Rabbi Shmuel Halevi Vosner, and he had a very big, I would call it a tank or a garbage can, filled with bubbling water, and his students put up a tremendous fire around it, and everybody came with their leichter, and they came with their spoons and forks. They had fishing rod with nets there. They dipped it into the very big utensils, into the very big hot boiling water for Hagolah, and everybody stood there, and then they came a line of people, and they asked questions in halacha to Reb Shmuel Halevi Vosner. I stood there also, and Reb Shmuel came over to me, and I was in earshot of every question that was asked, and I already had my smicha from Rabbi Chaikin, and from Rabbi Hirschsprung, and from Rabbi Hendel, and from Rabbi Shvei in Montreal, and I was listening to all the questions that they were asking. To me, it sounded like very foolish questions that were obvious, but that's the way of the religious Jews. They want to make sure that everything is 100%, and so therefore they came to Zichron Meir, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people lined up to ask the Rav questions. The Rav came over to me, and he says, by the way, I forgot your name. What is your name, your first name? I said, according to the shilas that the people ask you, today my name is Binyomin. That is my name. Usually my name is Binyomin, but today the name turned into Binyomin. He took me, he hugged me, he said, I'm so tired, and I have to listen to these foolish questions that the people ask, but that's what a Rav has to do. Anyway, we had a very nice time, and at the Seder, before we sat down, he had a very interesting custom that he asked everybody at the table, no matter who they were, men, women, children, and me, and he started off with me, tell me the pasuk that you say when you finish Shemon Esrei. According to the Shloah HaKodesh, you have to go up and to say the pasuk of your name. And I rattled off my pasuk, my father rattled off his pasuk, everybody said their pasuk. If there was somebody who did not know their pasuk, so they worked out what the pasuk would be, and they gave the person the pasuk. We had a very nice Seder. There was only one Seder for me. He told me I should not have two Sedarim. He knows for sure that in a short period of time that I'm going to become a chassan. My father was very happy, and actually he was working together with Rabbi Goldschmidt to help me to become a chassan, and the Rabbi gave the bracha, if they find the right girl and so on, that I should become a chassan. And every time I went with a girl, there was also a bitter line to sign at the end. Never again are you to go to Russia, no matter who sends you. And that line I could never sign whatsoever. And Reb Nachum Goldschmidt and his wife Chayetche and many people who knew me, they all tried to find shidduchim for me. But as soon as the people heard that I was in Russia and the work I did for the Rebbe, that was the end of all ends. What was my job in Bnei Brak? I just now came, I went to Simcha Gordetsky, he had a meeting with me. What was my job? My job was a very simple job. I would knock at the doors of the post office. I would show a letter that I got from Berko Wolf. What did the letter say? This young man, American Jew, called Binyomin Katz, he is here and you are not to help him. He has the permission from the government to look at every single book in the post office, who are the citizens of Israel in this city and any other city. You are never to try to investigate who he is and what he's doing. If he asks you for help, you help him. If he doesn't ask you for help, stay away from him. Don't try to investigate. And this was signed by a man, if I recall, his name was called Reb Aaron Dudavani, and he was Sar HaChutz of Israel. And I had this letter, was given to me by Berko Wolf, Olav Shalom, and I would travel to every single time to Kfar Chabad. I would present to Simcha Gordetsky and to a man called Rafael Khan. I would present them the names of the people of a certain city that I met in Russia, and they would either give me the okay or tell me negative, you're not allowed to take out this man, and so on, one way or the other. And among the Lubavitcher, they never let me take anyone out until they sat weeks and weeks and weeks and debated if he should go out, because all the Lubavitcher were considered the shluchim of the Rebbe, and quietly they all did shchita and milah. They all did they all did the work of the Rebbe. In no way were they allowed to come out according to the rules and regulations of Chabad. They were the lamplighters, and they were to remain there in Russia till later. And Amcha Yisrael was to come out, and I told them the names, and I used to go daily to the post office, find a matching name, and once I found the matching name, I would, once I found a matching name, I would go to the Rav of the city and to try to find out if this man's name has any connection with the Communist Party. Once that was cleared, I would knock at the door and meet up with the man and tell him that I just happened to visit in Russia his relative, and that his relative wants to have a visa. The man looked at me and he laughed his head off. He says, I have a relative in Russia, in this city. I don't know anything about it. What are you talking about? This man is your relative. How do you know it's my relative? And this is the way the discussions went. I says, he looks like you. He smiles like you. His nose looks like yours. Your eyebrow is the same. Your lips are the same. And he looks exactly like you. Hey, yeah, what's his name? And I would tell him what the man's name is, and so on, and we would come to a deal, and he would say to me, all right, I have a relative there, I never knew, I'll be glad to take him out. I have a problem. Once the relative comes, where am I going to put him? I only have one bed, I only have one kitchen, I only have one this. Where's he going to eat? Where's he going to sleep? I cannot afford a relative now. He might even have three, yeah, he has two children. Oh, yeah. Maybe they are family members. These are family names. Who does not have a name in the family called Avram, and who does not have a family name called Chaim? Figure that one out. Anyway, all this here worked. Then they came to me and they said, I'm willing to send a visa, but find me one normal person who you went to, and he already signed his name and sent the visa. I'll be the second one. I couldn't find anybody. One day in Rehov Rashi, in Eretz Yisrael, in Bnei Brak, I was sitting there in deep thought. I cannot get one person. And next to me was sitting a man who was looking at me. And he's looking at me and looking at me and looking at me and studying me very carefully. And he was a friend. His name was called Reb Shmuel Gerevich. He today lives in Australia, and he's the leader of the Beis Rivka. Rabbi Shmuel says, what are you so tense for? What are you so worked up for? I said, all my work is going down the garbage. I was given a job, I can't do it. I explained to him what I was living through. He says, listen, all they need is one example. I'll be your example. I will go and I will make, for the family of Gerevich that you have, I will make a visa, and you'll show it as a dugma. Here's my telephone. People will call me up, and I will get this thing going on its tracks, and its right tracks. Exactly what he did. He was married to a very nice lady called Hasidah family, and who are well known for the sefer called Ishei Tanakh. That is his father-in-law, and he happened to help me out immensely, because this was the hardest point of my shlichus. And after 2.5 years of traveling all over Eretz Yisrael and speaking to a man whose name was Rabbi Yankiv Lando, to check out the people in his area of Rehov Yecheskel, who had similar names to Russian Jews. Speaking to a man whose name was Reb Shmuel Halevi Vosner, the people of Bnei Brak, Zichron Meir, finding out who they were to make sure they weren't communists. Speaking to a man whose name was Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahneman, who happened to be the Panovich Rav, who to speak out about people who lived next to his area to find out that they were not communists. I finally was able to finish the quota that I was given by Simcha Gordetsky, and then a very good thing happened. There was an earthquake in Tashkent, and all the Jewish people who had their names on that bottle that I received that night in the city in Tashkent, all on my vodka bottle, all of them were sent out by the government, because the government had a debate. Should we build new houses after an earthquake for such rotten, low people, those Jews? Or should we send them out? And the vote was, who needs them? Send them out. And they all left. The only ones who came out a different way was the Mutchkins. They came out through people who did business with Canada, and their father was told by the Rebbe, the way I understand, the Peretz, as he was named for and known for. He was the one who spoke to the Canadian government officials, and when they make the deal of wheat for Russia, they should throw in that the very important two sons of her parents coming through Canada, and it worked that way for them. For the others, other miracles occurred, and the immigration went from 10 a week, 20, it built up to 80, 100, and then it went by the thousands, and the rest is history. So the Rabbi and his brachas were the ones that started the immigration. He was the one who had the Ruach HaKodesh, that in Israel they should start building thousands and thousands of houses, Kiryat Malachi and other places, Kiryat Gat, all over Eretz Yisrael and Lud, build houses. The immigration is coming, and this is a time when no one ever knew about it. After a while, the Rebbe sent me a telegram, and he told me, it's time to get married. I want you to come immediately to America. I want you to immediately find a shidduch and to get married. It didn't take too long, and the Rebbe found me a bride, my wife, and I went out, I guess, with her on Sunday night, and Tuesday night, and then Thursday night. Friday, Rabbi Groner had a telephone call from me. The Rebbe wants to know, Erev Shabbos, if you are able to stand next to the door, his door. He wants to know if he has permission from you to wish him Mazel Tov. And I said, I am ready, and the Rebbe wished me Mazel Tov Erev Shabbos. On Shabbos, there was a Farbrengen, and the Rebbe Farbrengen, and Rabbi Katz came over to me, and he said, the Rebbe wants you to stand next to him. I stood there, and the Rebbe said I should say L'chaim, and after I said L'chaim, the Rebbe smiled to me. The Rebbe got up, and like trigger, there it was. He started to dance, something unbelievable. And if I recall clearly, at the Chazara of Chassidus that time, Yael Khan whispered to me, he never saw the Rebbe in the last few months dance. And you brought a tremendous simcha to the Rebbe. Then he came over to me and he said, I want to talk to you a little bit. There's a bunch of students who came from Russia, and I heard them in Chassidus. There were the brothers Mishalovim, there were others, and they knew Chassidus very well. Which Mamorim did you bring? They say you brought Mamorim. How did you get Mamorim in? I said, I did bring Chassidus. I brought Topshin Yudalit. I brought them Tesvov. And the people in Russia always asked me one question. When they learn Chassidus, how should they do it? I said, word for word, Hirschsprung style, word for word by heart. And then they asked me, how could they be mekusher to the Rebbe? What would the Rebbe want them to do? What does the Rebbe do? I said, all I could ask you is to learn Rashi, get together every Shabbos for davening, so learn Rashis like the Rebbe does. Naturally, you don't have the Rebbe's mind, you don't have the Rebbe's Chassidim who know how to sit next to him and to listen for so long, but try your best, take Rashi and break him apart as best as you could. That's what the Rebbe does, and he does this 2, 3, 4 hours, 1 hour after the other, and try your best. They were happy to hear this because they didn't know what to hold on, what to do. Anyway, what could I tell you? I came to America, I became engaged, and until the time of my marriage, I did one thing. There was a man, his name was called Professor Green. This man came from Minnesota, and he was a man that he did a lot of work for Chabad. Every Saturday night he was in New York, and he would grab me and tell me, Binyomin, come with me. I want you to come with me because tonight I am going to talk about what Chassidus is about, and the night is called Erev Chabad. And I want you to sing. So all you have to do. I says, all right, I'll be glad to go. He used to pick me up and used to bring me to all different parts of New York. He used to speak about what Chassidus is, what Chabad is about, who was the Alter Rebbe, who was the Mittler Rebbe, and he used to speak very beautifully. At the end, my time came, refreshments, and I used to sing Nigunim. And I sang the different Nigunim, and the people liked it, they applauded. One time, a lady opened her mouth, very angry, and she said, and she yelled out, she doesn't understand the Derech Chabad. How come they are Russian Jews? How come the Rebbe doesn't give a darn about all the Russian Jews in Russia? How come he doesn't come out for demonstrations? How come he does not lead demonstrations? We hear nothing from him. How does one understand this? She asked. And she was going on and on and on. He came over to me and he said very quietly to me, Binyomin, I don't know how to shut this lady up. She has some very, very good questions. I think you should take over the microphone and quiet her down. Tell her about your trip to Russia. Tell her everything. Tell her hello. Tell her something. I said, God forbid. He says, what do you mean? He says, I was warned, black and white. I'm to shut my mouth, not to talk about anything, that I had any dealings with Russia. Yeah. He says, all right, I'll make you a deal. Here's a deal. Say one word. That's all. Not more than one word. One word. I says, all right, one word I'll say. I went up to the microphone, and all I said was one word. You asked a very good question. I will try to answer your question. You asked why the Lubavitch does not do anything for the Russian Jews, and the whole world does, and the Lubavitch refuses. You don't hear their voice. That is an excellent question. I'm going to answer you with one word. They do. Many good things. More than that I cannot tell you. The lady seemed to be happy. Everyone was happy. We went home from that Erev Chabad, and everything was good. The next day, I got a tap on the shoulder. Rabbi Chadakov was there. I want to talk to you. I have something important to say to you. He brought me into his room. He played the tape recorder. And on that tape, my voice was there. And he asked me, listen carefully. Maybe you'll be able to recognize somebody's voice. And he played it. He asked me, do you recognize someone's voice? I said, maybe. A little bit. I'll play it again. And he put it on high volume. And in his little office, he played it. And he blasted me with my voice. He put it off and he says, do you recognize the voice? I says, yes, I do. Did you say anything there? I says, nothing. All right, he says. He put on the tape the third time. He blasted it. And then after he got done, he said, do you hear anyone's voice? I says, yes, I do. Whose voice is that? I says, it's my voice. What did you say? I said, nothing much. He says, all right, I'll put it on again. Like, no, Rabbi Chadakov, don't put it on. I said one word. One word? There is a lady in the room who asked a very good question. How many words is that? He asked me. Then he said, I will try to answer you with one word. And he figured out that I said closer to 30 or 40 words. He was angry at me, as angry as could be. He looked at me in the eyeball, hard contact, and he says, listen to me, Binyomin. I don't want you to say even that. I know it was only one word. I don't want you to mention anything to Russia. All right? Now, he had with me an agreement. When I came back to visit the Rebbe the first time, he said, all your film, all your talking, everything you have, any papers, rip them up. There's to be no sign of you that you were ever in Russia. You're never to talk publicly. You're never to write a book. You're never to do anything. It all has to be finished with. Nobody should ever know that you were there. That's it. If you see anybody who recognizes you from Russia who comes to the Rebbe, get lost in the crowd. Don't come back. Tell them you don't feel good. Go to the bathroom. Get lost. No public speeches, nothing openly. All right, I understood. Next day he calls me in. The Rabbi was walking into 770. Ho! And the Lord. No one would believe it. Again, you broke your word. You know what the Rebbe saw? Pictures of the city of Rostov, the burial place of the Rebbe Rashab, all over. Kids were selling it. They were selling it for $0.25 a piece. A bigger picture, 50 cents. Where did the kids get that picture? Oh, I looked at Rabbi Chadikov. I said, Rabbi Chadikov, it has nothing to do with me. He challenged me. He says, find out who it came from. I said, Rabbi Chadikov, I heard some very good news. In Montreal, there is a well-to-do chassid. His name is called Zalman Gurevich. He happened to be right now in Russia, came back, and I think it has to deal with him. I'm not sure, but I think so. All right, he says, just wait here. He dialed Montreal. He dialed to Zalman Gurevich. He caught him in his home, and he said to him, were you in Russia? Yeah, I was. And he said, were you in the city Rostov? Oh, yeah, I was there. Yeah. Do you have your pictures of Rostov? Yeah, I have my pictures. You want to go look and check them? Yeah, I'll go look. He was an older man. He came back, no, somebody was in my house, stole the pictures. I don't have the pictures of the grave anymore. One of my visitors happened to look at my stuff when I was busy, talking, entertaining people, and I don't have it. Well, all right. Thank you very much. He smiled at me. You're off the hook. You're off the hook. You made it this time. A few weeks later, he called me in. I want to talk to you. Your name is all over the papers in Israel. Your name is all over. Why do you give interviews? I said, I never gave interviews. I remember not to say a word. I promised. I don't give any more interviews. It's finished with. I never did it. I never met an Israeli reporter. I'm sorry. It's not me. He says, find out who did it. Anyway, I thought a little while. I came back to his room. I says, I'll tell you what I think what happened. The Jewish people are coming now by the thousands. They're coming to the airports from Russia. They're coming to Israel. The reporters probably asked them about their life in Russia. And then the question came up, did you ever meet any Western people? And my name came up, a Western rabbi, a chazan from America. Binyomin Katz was with us for a period of time in Moscow and so on, and I think that to be the answer. He was so happy, and he said, thank you. Remember, he says, our bound, never to recognize the fact that you were in Russia. Please don't do it. You don't know how important it is to us, to the Rebbe, and to all of Lubavitch. Well, I kept quiet, and sooner or later, the American boys who were learning in Kfar Chabad, they met me when I came to Kfar Chabad the first time to speak to Reb Simcha Gordetsky. So I had a farbrengen with 5 friends. One of them was called Shapsi Gordonova Shalom. Another one was called Herschel Hecht. And there were another one was Pinchas Baumgarten from Argentina. There was another one, Dodi Naukin. Maybe there was another one person or two, but I think there were a small group of people, and they knew I was in Russia because they saw me go into Simcha Gordetsky's house, and they also saw postcards from different places. And I verbringed a little bit with them. And the first time in my life, in a long time, I took a bottle of whiskey. I drank. They looked at me. They never saw me drink, and I drank for the first time, and they were exploding. How could I drink so much? And I drank, and they didn't believe it. I certainly didn't believe it. One cup brought the other cup. Before you knew it, the bottle was empty, and I never drank before, but somehow or other, this was like the one time, and these boys now came back after their year in Kfar Chabad, and therefore they passed down the word, and that is it. So he says, remember, your job is, anytime anybody looks at you and smiles you and talks to you about Russia, you get lost. You don't feel good. You have to go to the bathroom. You get lost and you don't come back. And more or less, I kept what he said. I tried to stay out of the public eye as much as possible. But as time came on, it was very difficult for me to withhold because I had a lot of friends who were in Kfar Chabad. The word got leaked out, and before you knew it, a good deal of my friends, they all knew about it, and it seemed that the Russian Jews came to the Rebbe and they all identified me, and how much I ran and how much they invited me to come to their simchas and their weddings, how much I ran away from them, whether it was in Israel. Nothing really held out. And then one day a terrible thing happened, that I met a man called Eisenbach from Eretz Yisrael, and he told me about the tsaras that they have in Yerushalayim, that they want to take away all the money that the government gives for a chutz, for the people who Judaism that functions in Russia and so on. They want to give it to other groups and take it away from Chabad, because the other groups say that Chabad never came into Russia until the late 80s and 90s, and we know that you were there in the 60s, in the early 60s, and these people say nobody from Chabad ever came to visit Russia to do anything, and they never did a stitch of work inside, and we know you were there, and we want you to come out publicly and to shut their mouths. I says, I'm not allowed to write to any, I'm not allowed to. I feel Rabbi Chadikov breathing right now down my back. I'm not allowed to. I don't know. But we need it. It's time now to act. Rabbi Chadikov passed away already, and everything is out in the open, and it's already past those years. You have to do it. I says, look, I will do it in a different way. I will give you information. You do the writing. You know the size of the hats of all the people who sit in the meetings over there in Yerushalayim, and you know what to say to them. You're a clever man. You are a bright man. I'll give you all the information. You write what you want and sign my name, and I will be a good boy and I'll be quiet, because Rabbi Chadikov told me to be quiet. Anyway, exactly what he did. The Rosh Yeshiva of Tomchei Temimim of Bnei Brak got all the information, and he was the first one who came out open with it. And then later, other people came. Once at the dollars, I went over to the Rebbe. My wife pushed me, and my family pushed me, and telling the Rebbe I would like to write something about my trips that I did in Russia on behalf of immigration, and I would like to have a skama from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe spoke to me, and he said, all right, times are different. It is. I want you to talk it over with these people, and you could perhaps you could think of writing something now, but speak it over and so on. So that's exactly what I did, and that's more or less where we stand. Now, to end this whole program, let me tell you that I today live in a beautiful city called New Haven, Connecticut. I am an instructor in first 30 years. I was an instructor of teaching Gemara in the day school called New Haven Hebrew Day School. And I helped my father-in-law with all his problems that he had, and he had many, many problems. And among the problems he had, there was a group of people who decided that they were going to make an end to all of Chabad, and they were going to make an end to the Rebbe's talking about Mashiach and about everything else. And they had a beautiful plan, and they had a very rich man who was going to furnish them with tremendous amount of money to bring down Chabad at their knees. And I got wind of it, and I spoke to the Rebbe in an illegal way. I had no fear of pouncing on the Rebbe's door and begging him to help out the yeshiva that was going to go down, plus every single moised in the eastern seaboard. I told the Rebbe everything about it, and on a day which was called Rosh Chodesh Nisan, I was ashamed of what I did, that I interrupted the Rebbe from his studying and from all the things that he does privately. But I felt, the Rebbe said, you're right, go upstairs right now to the Rashad, to Rabbi Gerari, call him, tell him that I said there should be an emergency meeting, and they should do something to save all the Lubavitcher yeshivas, what the Misnagdim want to go to do, to quiet the Rebbe, that what he should do and what should not do, and how they should control the Rebbe, and they're going to tell the Rebbe what to do. So the Rebbe says, you go to Rabbi Gerari and you tell him everything. And Baruch Hashem, I went to Rabbi Gerari and I told him everything, and he made a emergency meeting, and I told him the Rebbe wants to know what is the outcome of the meeting, and Baruch Hashem, we saved the day on that with that bad dream and bad idea, what these people in Philadelphia and other places plan to do. And I had the chutzpah to do it, because I never felt that I was doing anything wrong, and I always felt that the Rebbe would be happy. And now I live in the city of New Haven, and I have a lot to do with teaching. In the beginning, I used to teach youngsters. Then I went on kashrus. I went to work for the OK and for the OU and for the Star K. I went 10 years and visited all the Chabad houses in Asia. I enjoyed the shluchim, their mesiras nefesh, the way they are devoted, like the Holtzbergs and others. And I could tell you, the Holtzbergs are not the only ones who did and do the Rebbe's job. Every single shliach that I know in Asia, who are under the Merkez, and those who are not under the Merkez, they all do the Rebbe's rotzen. They are all completely devoted to every single person that comes to them. They treat them like brothers, whether their skirt is long or short, whether their breath smells from mashka or from perfume. They're out to help every single person that comes and knocks at their door, and they do everything to give everyone a refined meal and a good place to sleep, and treat them like one would treat a brother, because their Avos Yisrael that they learned from the Rebbe is very, very great. And every single one of them is great in learning Torah, and every single one of them has one thing in mind, to do everything that the Rebbe said, and to bring the Geula b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.